Excellent.
Well, yeah, and he says sterling Scottish notes, don't sound like English notes.
Yeah. Is it not anymore?
No, no, sterling English, it's pounds. Pounds what?
Yeah.
Scottish
Yeah.
But something to do with being silver, because it is sterling silver. Something to do.
It's still buying a silver jewellery, it's still silver, isn't it?
And it's British pound sterling, so that's what it's based on, sterling silver.
There's another type of silver though that you asked for. Weird because things don't wanna.
No problem. Heating, plumbing, engineering. There you go.
That'll do.
Yeah, I don't know how fast I'll be on the train. At least it's only little steps at a time, so I ended up posting on the line, no worries.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, yeah, Ricky, what do you do?
No,
Ricky,
you teach me that.
No, you know, now you think, alright.
listen, just call me.
Leave
That's right. It's done on the line, isn't it? If you call us, all right?
We're going to
You
start.
just run in the straight line, you're right to the line. Here he is.
I want to sit down. Why am I sitting down?
No, you're not allowed to sit down.
I'm not being a target. Or on a shield to press. Yeah, thank you for coming. It's a smaller turnout
It's a shocking turnout.
than Bradford. That was about 30 was there.
Was it?
The kingofengland.com. I don't know if you know of Greg Hallett. That was truly unique in itself. The proposal he came up with, and then the boys had gone round and got some of the local lads from around there, and it was all right. It was a good. What was it, 12 till 4, wasn't it? Half 4-ish.
Yeah.
Andy did a presentation. I've got some of that presentation in an email, I think, from, I'll have a look and see. That was quite interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to see that again, website again, because you don't always take things in here, do you know why? That's true.
Yeah, I'll upload it to the .com, and now I've got that one of them at Anne-Marie's. I can put the video on and then do this again and record it all. So for the benefit of the video, they'll get that separately through SPLs and then on YouTube. And I'll do similar ones and present what Andy did, and it'll pick it up just like a video. So yes, we're in a good place because we've had 2 years private, like cooperative with the .com. It isn't registered, it isn't licensed, I haven't gone anywhere. You won't find it, like you do Dun and Bradstreet and Company's House. I don't care and give a shit about getting arrested and civil issues. We can argue money, bankruptcy, insolvency. When you work for the big man and you get messages, it kind of, when you believe that, it's a bit weird for me because I've always been a materialistic man and I've always needed a reassurance, and I've been a follower. Now I've turned into someone who was angry, pissed off, suicidal, confused, self-medicating. And what I'm doing now here, even though it would be a relatively small turnout, we've got, it doesn't matter about the numbers here today. I'm grateful for even one, turning up, or just somebody listening. Even one YouTube subscriber would be enough. So I feel the wave coming, and there is, in my email box, a great demand for information. There are ones out there taking stuff and trying to trick others and take them down the road. And we're in 2 years in December, would have been private with splspro.com, and everybody says you can't have a .com and run a charitable trust, but I wanted .community, and I wanted to be doing international business because we are, as tribes or whatever, originally, linked internationally, possibly one continent in the beginning, whatever, it may have split up. So I have an obligation thing. Because it's commerce, so you have a domain, and immediately the ones, speculative ones or doubtful ones will think it's about money. There's always money involved, but like Gemstone, from what I've found, £30 a month they want a lot of money. Steve McCrae wanted £5 grand Where are you, Steve? For the benefit of the video. I don't know. Mark Salem, Nottingham Free Thinkers, been around ages. What I've produced and what Kev's produced and what Josh and Andy and the YouTube scribes themselves and overall Hangouts is fantastic. The depth has blown my, wow. I've even like ran around just like, I can't believe moments of, this is it. We cannot fail. We cannot lose in some areas, and even if they do change, like we're seeing now, knee-jerk reactions to say that we're 2 years established on the .com, 41 years in the game myself, high court appearances for non-criminal family, property access, and got a court writ. The fact that the mother had to move house after using the children for a weapon, and me getting a court writ, she had to move house and not tell anyone. The only way in this realm for her to keep them children from me, I had the court writ, I'd done everything I should have, I had a barrister, 2 years, 20 grand, and as a last resort, she thought, right, I'll move house, and then he's not going to know where they are, and he'll still pay the debt, weaponising the children. So that's the core fundamental. I'm not after a pot of gold, and when they come knocking and they start threatening, I'm quite angry. I look like the way I am, and I'm looking for inner peace. But if you threaten, me or my family or a loved one or an old lady on our street, then I welcome that. And I'm at the point where my patience is rather thin, and it takes a lot to be composed in this anxious, uncertain, demanding, trying, confusing time. We've got the front benches of the present UK government, and I trust fictional shit, and it's just a game. It really is. And this Boris is now doing whatever for Brexit, and it doesn't matter how young we are and how little we consider ourselves in this battle of Rome and the end continuum that they seem to have with the agenda. Is we have a right. You have a right. Tiny people can make a difference. And I've spoken to Western Oriental, Jamaican, black, women, Lorraine she's called. David, I go to Nottingham and I get all of this, and she's like this on the phone at 57, and talking about the mortgage and the judge, motherfucker, and she's talking about what? Sunday night, 9 p.m. We're in the court tomorrow at 10. Are you going to help me, Dave? I'm like, wow, Lorraine, you're a legend. But tomorrow you're in court and it's 9 p.m. Wow. You ever Mark Salem and she's dropping these names from Nottingham? I'm like, well, I don't know. I've never done this in principle. And then Michael Benissi has turned up, that Richard Werner, Edward Ellis, all these people that we're putting out there that have done reports that are independent, that are financially recognised. Benissi backwards of very well, making history as we speak. The theological place, so we're in a good place. It's a bit scary, it's a bit uncertain, but in the last 2 years I've never seen so much change in the public realm and in our own personal development, what we can do, how we've corrected. We've taken 4 steps forward, 7 steps back, moved around. Facebook, YouTube, the politics in itself, quantum, 5G, AI. You have a lot. To me, I'm a weirdo, and on my cast I do not a weirdo, but unique thinking, fragmented, and it becomes normal to me. Not so much stressful, but I wonder, how do others feel? How do they cope? What self-medication, wine o'clock is how we cope. We're going to the doctor, telling him there's a problem, and that life's crazy, and then he turns around and says, well, I'm not really sure, the world's crazy, you seem a bit loony. Some woman asked him about 5G and get sectioned, it was in the news, weird things that GP's power that they have, if you question the system and they are whatever, you can actually get, in a bad way with them. They're there to help you, like the government giving you money. If you sign liability, you're contracted in, then you're getting sanctioned, you're getting tested, you've got no legs, but you can see and you can press a button so you can work, but you can't get to work, you're not to be insured because of health and safety, but they're just employed to get you through that first bit, and then it's really bad. It really is. The children are depressed. Panorama Dispatches did a special on that. So where do we start? Knowing who you are. Like this, stop and search stuff is one area. It happens a lot, and it's one of the Crown's main income sources and revenue. Then it's big barrier at your door, so we'll do that one in this same style afterwards. And then it's answering the telephone and mail. So you've got interactions on a legal front that will give you liability, and if you're not sure about how to proceed, then you can end up in in a much worse off. Even from an officer at the vehicle asking if it's your vehicle and if you're the driver, it will, you know, there's a language there that if you don't see it, it's deceptive, and for the avoidances of doubt and for the, you know, and confusion.
R2.
You can, it always happens, doesn't it? It's always.
Your presentation in a minute.
There, that's Josh. WhatsApp. What's he saying? Let me pause it. You may have some, you may be lost. Let's see. So letters, paperwork, and that. What you get, you're learning the passing text grammar, David Windmiller. All that's quite advanced. You would speak babble, be able to communicate, be able, and let's say principles tie in with. We're advanced in that, where we can go back here and see that that's right with what they're saying, with what's coming, or what was in the past that we're going to learn about in the future. There is a negative and a positive law, and there are angry, nasty, Masonic, pale, stale, male men out there in them realms. They're officers, agents, principals, judges, and they view it as their realm. They've done a deal, it looks like, and they're out for what they can get, and they've got no soul, they have no emotion. It's effectively a computer executing commands with its internal processor and kernel. You know, ports, USB ports, and everything's, you know, as we found, linked. It does all trace back to Rome. All roads lead from England back to Rome, and we can safely say that London town, and that city of London, is where the enemy resides, and that's what this whole landmass, once it works that out, and the bankruptcy, and once these like work out in these like Birmingham houses of Manchester, London, there is no debt, you know, and that's the hardest message to get out. That's so simple. This worry and suicide and misery is equally fixed. It's the demand out on you. Always conditionally accept. Is we found a full pathway through everything. We have an answer for everything. And as a little boy, I was a shit bag at school, and I was thieving out my mate's coat pockets, and I had no money. I had an answer for everything. I was a victim of, but I was very, hard done by, and I made sure everybody knew it. And I was always in trouble. The police, very young, because I was a little shit, and I was doing stuff I shouldn't be. Yeah. And now I can see that I was instilled and I was programmed. And I grew up, and I'm embarrassed about what I remember I did, and I don't know who that boy was or where he came from. I know that that character's dead, but when I look about now at all these others misbehaving, I'm like, it's the program, it's the chemicals, it's the food, it's the cognitive, it's the simple things they're seeing, it's the simulated deaths, it's the whatever's happening, and it's they're getting thicker. They really are. The intelligence, they won't be able to do this. These things are going to be dead soon. It will not happen, and I know it's a Sunday, whatever, but even so, even the hangouts are changing, the digital interface media, the rights, China, Canada, languages. So yeah, we're going to go and find this door. I'll tell you now in 2 weeks, and I'll put it on the .com. If we're successful, I can't see a failure happening. Defend the keeper of the faith is Elizabeth, or Charlie as we see it. There's an archbishop, a Catholic one, that's bonded us. We can be responsible for the administration. And we just lay the claim and say we have a right, under God, and he's got the verbiage there with the privileges of Peter going to see the judge in the chancery. Is it a judge? Is it a master? Is it a trustee? Is he a minister of a church, and perhaps somebody like a high priest? Is he all four? And he can do all four if you know how to speak and present. Yes, he is. He's a banker, he's a judge, he's a high priest, he's a master. He's your best friend if it comes to it. But if this doesn't work, the door, and going for the duty judge and laying claim, and then if we need to pay and go back, then we will do and do it properly. But I've looked at the chancery online, and I've looked at the download for the April 2019 amendment, and that just says here's all the master's address, like email, telephone, department, and there's loads, there's probably 50 masters, telephone number. You ring them up, hello, what, yes, and they're all very great and that way inclined to, and the other way is to finish off. If you get in the shit with your person and this claim's brought, then I would argue if you know a reasonable amount, then we could either the magistrates argue that we want discharging of these charges because we, the party, are administering it in our way with private. There is an agreement fee schedule for performances. If we are to perform, if you force us to proceed and you don't, remember their maxims, we rebook that. We have the certain tools in place, so then they have to discharge or issue a summary judgment, which is not following the rules of law. Now, is it a rule or is it law? And obviously more on time again, that's what they do everywhere. So we have the law, we have the damages, you sort this out, magistrate, or you force us to proceed and miscarriages of justice, and then that's where we're at, because it seems that when we're honourable in the magistrate, with Thomas and the traffic charges, we pointed everything out and they still called him Mr. They wouldn't adhere to the processes and the principles that we had in our mind. They wanted it done their way. The clerk to the three magistrates was controlling everything. Lado there, prosecution for the, it was an officer, Metropolitan CPS claimant, officer, Metropolitan rank and file, so he's representative for the police there. He's not just a counsellor or whatever, he's a police officer, prosecution, and he was helping out, and so they had to deliberate, and it was touch and go. So I was fully under the impression they were going to just come out and say, no, he's an officer, you're liars, you're naughty, and they discharged the charges because they said under the rulings of law, under this circumstance, the claim that had been made had reasonable doubt, there was insufficient evidence, we presented, he said, excellently for an Oxford magistrate, deliberated, and they'd taken expert legal advice to be doubly sure that the decision that they'd made was the correct one for no appeal. They didn't issue a summary judgment, there was no vexation, there was on our part. He told me to shut up, the clerk, the lady did, she's controlling everything because she said, who is here, the defendant? It appears that Thomas's layman friend, advisor is now representing for him. And I says, I didn't object and do it all officially like you do on, you see Rumpole and Cameron and Little and all that bullshit. I just said, I'm sorry, and I shouldn't have said I'm sorry, it was just a thing as you do, you just go into autopilot. It's very hard to say simple, concise, especially for me, I know, but and I said, I'm sorry, I'm here today as a layman advisor and I would be permitted to speak and let him know. Miscarriages of justice, due process, facts of the hand matter need to be, brought to attention. And then Thomas went across and said he was under cross-examination. He says, I'm the most qualified man here today out of everybody, including this guy, the claimant, to talk about travelling, driving, safety and etc. I'm the one making the decision. I'm the captain of that ship on that day in a commercial capacity. And the clerk started looking at the officer, we were talking, the judge, magistrate, and started talking to Thomas, and he was even so eloquent to say, which was beautiful, excuse me, will you look at me when you're addressing me, and not the other parties in the room. And I was like, oh, composure, eloquence, and they knew, we knew, and it's very hard, very horrible. And that was a simple traffic charge, And then in the next few days, in the Oxford paper, he rang me up and says he's got the printout. His mate's rang him, and it says he's been issued a charge for a PCN, guilty, and fine, and points, which is not true. So that's lies and deceit, miscarriages of justice. First-hand knowledge, he's got the recording, the video, newspaper, print, everything. I could argue, and I said onto YouTube, the Ministry of Justice are covering shit up because the London white van man, commercial man work this out, then they would, wow, there'd be uproar, really would. Simply for that, And we do anything wrong, it's all bandied about and in the records.
Oh
and
my God, yeah.
It's, the job, employment, sanctioned, losing, not getting any benefit. It's just amazing. So yes, we are strong. We've got a lot more than we had when we started 2 years ago, and we are confidently ready for a master to ask the question. And if you couldn't do it like that, wait for that claim, and argumentatively, could have discharged it at the magistrate, say that there are equitable damages because of the claims. At the point of discharge, I said to Thomas, right, he now needs to checkbook time, damages, he's been discharged. So anything, once you get a discharge, anything that's been incurred and has caused damages to the estate, the man, you, equitable, remember, first in time line is great. So you charge him, the claimant, for the prosecution, claimant, and Thomas said no. It turned out this man knew his dad, he was a friend in the family. So madness really was, and I said, well, because of his discharge, you're due the money they pay out, and that time there, you could have then raised that at court, High Court, and says you want your equitable remedy, and the failure to hear and administrate, you're in the wrong assumption and presumptions of the court, you know what they are, you've submitted your affidavit, you'd use all of that paperwork for that discharge, in my reckoning, and you would then go to the claim, you would counter-claim for your, or claim, sorry, if it's finished, claim, and you get your damages, and you'd appeal to the High Court, and you say you want your remedy for that, but going forward, because of the way that you've done it, you could use all that as evidence. That was a good example to say now, going forward, maintenance and cure, High Court, you know, all of it going forward, this is how it will be, status, standing capacity. I might close that window because there's a bit of a draft. Yeah, it's not too open, is it? And so you do that, like even with the present claim, or yeah, one that's going to come in the future. You wouldn't have to, go down London and knock on this door and see if you can find it. You know, I'll let you know privately. That's why I built the .com. YouTube can't go out and chat about in public. And when you hear like one's disappearing off the scene and dying, such as I'm not sure John Harris is dead. Maybe he's not. Maybe he got paid out. Maybe he said, I'm going to get rid of the birth certificate, and then he disappeared. Well, that's an instrument. That is liability if you mix it up. But if you know what it is, it's an excellent tool. It's one of the best things you can ever have. As you're under 18, it looks after you until 18. And when you're 18, you start signing and taking, and then you agree, albeit tacit acquiescence, non-disclosure, public statutory constructed evil, that you go through that from that. So we just go back to that as we was as a child from the government. And that can be done with the a little technical move here and there, but I don't want to get locked up. I'm not that desperate, you know.
So
We
if
get you out, Dave, don't worry.
so this person, is it, I mean, if we just ignore it all his lives and just use it to our benefit when we need to, or is it, I mean, yeah,
It's a tool.
but is it better to get out of it?
Not really, no, it's just better to have it so it's no longer assumed and presumed how it is now as a public liable estate that is a subject of the assumptions and presumptions of the present regime. We have a regime that's under Elizabeth, and then that comes under Westminster, and that's the statutory acts on the person. So we have to look at the person. We've done that. And in the Covenant for the International Human Rights, it says that every human is afforded the right of persons, and we have to look at humans and persons, and then we get Smithy in the Bible and God and everything in creation, and then we look before creation and we find that actually Göbekli Tepe is now actually, as we speak, rewriting history. So the first major megalithic, not just civilization like caveman, which is predating caveman as what we've got with the 5,000-year-old principle and Bible and history. The Göbekli and that Derren Decker with the cave system going down, and others are saying that 10,000 years now. The Great Flood was about 8,000 years, 10,000 years ago, 2,000 now, plus the 8 is, 8,000 plus the 2 is the 10,000, 8,000 years BC, the ice caps melted, and these discoveries are coming up. So God, persons, Bible is great, but as I've said to Smithy, now we've got the pre-Christian gnosis of antiquities, and these other names are coming up. That's something else to consider. So we've got a manuscript written by man about these laws, but in fact the laws with God and creation come from before as well, and they've been built upon, like the common law has been built upon by the Romans and what the established factor is now, presently, but we had a good system. And it's just been usurped, and boat people have come in and made it their own and bought people off, and others have basically been paid, it looks like, to turn a blind eye, commit murder with legal policies. So if you die via starvation because of sanctioning, that's a legal penalty that you've submitted to, and has legally murdered you, but it's legally good, meaning that it's kosher, but lawfully you're dead. You've got rights under God. So lawful, that's unlawful in the realm, but you've used your person, haven't you? If you knew who you was and you didn't accept the liability,
That's
it
the
puts you back on them.
distinction, isn't it?
Yeah.
I am this, here is my person,
Yeah.
I know exactly how to use it.
Yeah, that's the key thing. Is
Yeah,
we
but
have
you
got to
understand, this is, I'm flesh and blood,
Yeah.
here I am grantor,
Grantor, yeah.
person's beneficiary,
Everything in the
please
will.
take the trustee seat immediately.
Grantor.
But then everything in the realm is paper and signatory, so a man can't exist on paper and a man can't sign. If you're signing for anything and you're doing paper, it's always legal. That's always your person, date of birth, surname, national insurance number. So that, you very rarely are the man or the woman, or as we say, just the man. You're not. You never get called or asked for that.
The significance of this signature then.
Liability. They don't trust you.
Is that to do with your person, his signature?
It's called an equitable asset. So your asset is your signature. It's an asset because it's worth money. When you sign, it means you're going to pay something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Always means you're going to pay something. So every time you sign for anything, so anybody else wants to sign something, they can't force you. You can always say no. You'd only sign if it's a benefit. You know, if it's not a benefit to you, then
What
it's
you're
not.
entitled to. If you're in a situation, person, say,
That's your access to get what you
When they say, well, you still don't sign, you don't go home this afternoon.
Not him.
and
That's not
You
really.
can
He's
sign,
just, it's the office paper.
which would negate any liability to it, and that's done by
but it's one of the
small, lowercase c, just try and lowercase d, signature or autograph, if you're using an autograph, what we do. And then undressed, I usually write undressed about 45 degrees across the back of the signature.
That's without liability, yeah.
Yeah, so they're saying, well, I'm not going to give you your card back, your car keys back or something until you sign, and that's the way you do it. And that signature can't be used for liability.
Right.
Which is really important. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, basically, always any government, anything government benefit oriented, that's how I sign it. Whether they understand it at the office, they get it, or not, I don't know, but they will do it in court.
No,
So that's
they're not meant to.
What about, you know, registering your vehicle? For example, what, which way would you,
Forget about
like,
that.
say, prove you own it, proof of ownership, would that, like you said once, you need, it would be a good idea to have like a fingerprint or
A bill of sales, so ownership is a commercial ownership, like authorship, but they're very powerful, so to prove that, you have a bill of sales, however you bought the property, which is classed as a vehicle, so on my video, I mentioned the DVLA and private property, he told me to send the V5s back, the bills of sale, and then they will administer that accordingly as a trust item. He thought it was a house. I asked him what gave him that impression. He said, because I referenced it as private property. He said, no, okay, it's a car, a vehicle, it's not in the public. So in England and Wales, that's not United Kingdom. So England and Wales have a set of rules. The United Kingdom has a set of rules. In the United Kingdom, you have legal, and it's all crazy where we are now. If you exit to the England and Wales rules, which you can do, because it's just here, it's only your belief. You know, when you think, that tells you where you are. So my belief tells you England and Wales, or Anglo soil, and there's the United Kingdom, England and Wales, and then Anglican soil. Not to confuse you. So that's where we are in the person, with legal and everything. When you have the V5 registration in the United Kingdom, and you want it to be private, you can go and have a private trust in England and Wales, which is taking it from the United Kingdom. So anything you move that way, with ruling of England and Wales. Now, is the bill of sales and these what they call bills of rights and so forth, are they belonging to United Kingdom or are they England and Wales? It's England. Now we have these separations. This is hard for you initially because it was hard for me to get around the Commonwealth, United Kingdom, British Isles, and all of these different identities that we associate this one landmass with. So when you go to play football in the World Cup, you'll shout England, and when you're looking at international commerce and whatnot, you'll see United Kingdom. When the Queen speaks at Christmas on the TV, she talks about the Commonwealth. When the Prime Minister and the Europeans and so forth talk about Brexit, they're talking about trade with various. And it's like, hang on a minute, I can't be just. So You like the money, religion, and the controlling factors, the language, you know, we're bringing to you with the tierage of control. The law has the same, and the bullshit law is United Kingdom, and it's legal. You want to go law, private, and man, you would go England and Wales, and the laws of England and Wales. But then, if you like Andy Smith and Josh and I, and others, you would go, well, they're not really England and Wales, and the monarchy and the Queen are still there. It's just before she built the United Kingdom, which is now above England and Wales. And where England and Wales was, you had before that, because there hasn't always been government in these monarchies, and there's been battles, and there was druids and medieval, and before that. So England landmass, before all of this, you know, was just a landmass, Anglo. So we've got Anglo, invasions, battles, kings, lineage, you know, Jesuits, cardinals over here. At some point we've got a monarchy, and we've got England and Wales, and the, you know, Empire, and Britannia's being built, and the Commonwealth, and then it's getting up and stronger, and the state and the church have merged, and they get more power, and they get more, the sun never sets on the empire, and they were building up, killing Indians in the Americas, India itself, the proper India, cutting hands off and all that shit, forcing China to take opium, and the opium was nasty, horrible, building the up of it, and then it's gone back down again, as you can see present day. United Kingdom, Commonwealth, England and Wales is, so then we've got the Anglo left, that you're free to choose, if you so see it and believe so. There is a lot of layers there, like the law, you know, and the court, so you have that in these kind of presentations, and you can remember how it is, legal. There's three main things then, the United Kingdom, England and Wales, and an Anglican type, you know, and that's how it rules. Legal, person, signature, you're always there. You'll very rarely go to England and Wales for anything. You'll very rarely go to Anglo, unless like we are now, together, English, Anglo, because English, lish, derivative, watered down, it's like no-ish, Anglo, Amory, Hungary, they call it Angol, A-N-G-O-L, Anglo, very similar, just different arrangement of the same letters, yeah. And I go around the world and see words, I'm like, I know what that means, I can tell straight away, there's codes there, so the language, the tool, that's the basic premise, and they don't like it, some of the agents and whatnot, and some of them love it. They're like, wow, you know, it's not all bad. Some of them, they might know, an officer go, all right, a free man are you? Or a judge, you're a free man. No, I'm not a free man. We are the creditor and debtor. There's a big difference. It's not a free man argument. We don't rely on Magna Carta. We don't rely on the Constitution. We rely on maxims of equitable measure. We rebut the legal. We do know who we are. We do know that we have rights, and we will not be deceived. And that's what they hate, because they're those rules of their legal signatory realm. So you're going to play that game. You need to. How many statutory regulations are there from Westminster to man for Commonwealth individuals? So many million. I forget 20 million. So ignorance is no defence. Well, if you don't prepare well and you lose, and you can't argue it, because they've got the house will win 9 times out of 10. I would never build a website and make you tick something and say, if you don't know you've got any rights, and I'm going to rinse you. No, because I've got boundaries, you know, and I know the boundaries. If I say, if you don't know who you are, then you will be deceived, and I'm going to deceive you like some kind of Houdini, Uri Geller, Dynamo, the demon magician. I would never do that either, but they will, and they will do that with letters and languages and colours and boxes and the force of law. The phone rang a month before going to see my mum in Greece, and it was an anonymous voice from the computer sound, and I answered it, and it said, hello, this is the British HMRC government, there is a warrant out for your arrest, no name mentioned, computer analogue, a voice just like anonymous used, please press 1 and inform yourself to an agent. I went, get stuff, man, not a prayer, hung up. I might swap, and then I pressed block number, and then I rang Andy and says, I'm going to take, because I don't know anyone's number in the phone, and I said, I'm going to put your number under my belt here, because, or write it down on some paper, so they take everything off you, and you get one phone call. If you haven't got a number memorised in your head, and you haven't got it anywhere, then they will not let you maybe have your property, just because they know what you want it for, and to stop you and to be an arse. So I says, I might ring you when I come in or out of the airport because I've now got this issue to me. And easy now, easy Steve.
I'm Steve. How you doing? All right, yeah? Good to see you.
Nice to see you nice. Well done, brother.
Yeah.
Get up and I'm going.
Well, you're not doing it,
Yeah, actually, one of the rails was correct.
This is what I said that again.
Happy Sunday.
All right. Bits and pulse for like psycho actors, same thing. Yeah, yeah, something like that, yeah. Or dyslexic people.
Small little crew.
Dave hates you, I promise
So I was going through the airports and no arrest, no nothing, no anything. I recently had
You're not trying to-
Millicent's passport expired. I did fill it in weirdly with purple ink and I had the 3 dots and I did put now, I might have put 3 dots and that's it. So like one at the beginning and 2 up. I've never really used it. I like to put like these are all rights reserved, no liability accepted. I don't use errors and omissions anymore because that's like a commercial thing for pallets missing. When you deliver something on a lorry, you put errors and omissions accepted. Invoice comes, there's 2 pallets missing. You say, all right, I'll have a look. Oh, it turns out we didn't put them on. I'll accept that omission. Done. It's something like, it's one of them things. We don't operate like that, but. Yeah, interesting. Threats via the phone, being arrested, council tax outstanding, PCNs, there must be at least 10, water type charges, big barriers, civil issues, no crimes. And I thought, I'll leave it and see. I've got to just, risk it. And nothing happened. And all like shitbags. Lying to you like that is again just blatant lies. It is quite a lot of it. In the early days when I got into this, there was the mentors saying, Lee Barron and Rowe was one, and some others on Facebook saying you don't have to answer them, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to contact them, they haven't got any powers. And it turns out if you're quite advanced, you could do that now, knowing this. And you've got nothing to lose, no children, you're not bothered about the neighbours hearing stupid hours because that will happen. Then they're right, yeah, they won't bust in, they won't push out. Even for council tax, it takes quite some years
Oh, yeah.
for them to get, pissed off enough to get the door down. So I haven't known anybody in the last 5 years have any doors kicked off hinges for civil debts. And we've been present on the telephone, and I've been in another place like Citywise, and we've had a man over in another place, Derby and Burton, and I've got rid of them with verbal instruction and noticing on the telephone. Randy's done it, Serge's done it, we've done it a few times. I'm sure some of you may have been present, and you put them on notice, you let them know, you give them what's what, you get video filming, you go out and check the registration of the iron horse they're using and see if that's insured for it. Even daft things like that. Yeah. What we're finding is in a court case, you don't have to argue anymore. You set it out in the paperwork, conditional acceptance, and the way that you present it, pushing it generally, the offices will ignore, and the court scenario will be presented. And once you get there, sending notices and paperwork and whatnot, they sometimes will honour it, and discharge because you've done it correct. You've filed the paperwork and you've presented it. These are in dishonour. It's clear to see. It's not always about having to go there yourself. You can build up a case and send it all copies, never originals, because they lose them, and present an officer to the court with conditional acceptance. And you see the status, standing and capacity is something the Freeman area missed. They didn't focus so much. It was all on about the battle itself and how to get through it and damages and you're not under your oath. And some of it argumentatively is a little bit about the, you walk into a court, they're already sat down. Yeah. Where's the swearing in part? No, yeah. Come on, let's think now. Let's go right back to the beginning. You already sat down, pal. Or you will be in there and they will walk in. And you will all rise if you so want to, and then they will sit. You're given the authority and whatever, but where's the swearing in part? He just walked in. I don't know where he's been. I don't know who he is. There's no ID. He says there might be a plaque on the front, the right honourable, a magistrate. How long does it take to be a magistrate then? Let's have a look. Not very long. absolute joke. So all right, where have you been?
21 hours.
Honestly, so then why in the Bible, you know, so it's really, there's no standing, there's no capacity. And where is the defendant? I am here today, we are here today, and we play it like that. The paperwork is there, you've got that, it's been presented, you know why we're here. So they get vexatious then, and they'll get angry, and they know you know the game, so it's about control. Now I need to learn that. But we've got questions, I'll let you breathe and say hello to Jamie and Steve and sorry, Sam, thank you for this. Is it our trip now?
That's what we're getting here, but yeah.
Birmingham's not fun, is
Three
it?
seven a day, an hour each day for
An
lunch.
hour, 20
Yeah,
minutes.
that's hopeless.
Birmingham's still quite evil in some respects. Sadistic.
You work here a lot, haven't you?
Surge's business, cleaning moles or floors and stripping paper. Horrible. Mushrooms are growing out of water. Out of people's toilet. That's too many in the house, and it's been like it for 9 months. It's not like they've got it down, but they ring up. They leave it because they want to get Rihanna's priorities. So when you go in, it's going to a blackout, and it's like,
Are these people's houses or little buildings?
flats, houses, high-rise, masonette, a lot. We have ritual showers and things going all down there. Toilets busted, so it's not good. Much rather be doing this and going to court and trying to beat the them now, putting all this into practice.
Yeah.
You haven't missed much. Hello there. Good morning. You haven't missed much. We're just having a chat, a nice break, and we're giving them an update, certain strengths where we're at. You know,
Take it this time.
we've got Josh maybe on his way. And that's, I think everybody's here. Yeah.
I'm getting your phone.
Andy Grace. There we go, Andy. You're excited, man. I saw you comment on there. Come and say hello.
Nice to meet you in person.
Why you going that way? Yes, thank you.
How you doing, Andy?
All right, bro.
Is anyone ask
Yeah,
questions?
good to see you, mate.
Any
Really nice to see you.
questions?
Thanks
It's all
for turning
about
up, mate.
anything.
Good,
Just
yeah.
kind of laid back and
Nice one.
informed for you.
Yeah, no worries. We'll have a chat in a while.
Yeah,
No worries.
Let's speak private.
You Andy from Nottingham?
No, I'm from Bristol.
Would you think could the Great Flood have been actually physically happened, or could it have been the start of this maritime law thing?
Well, I'd say it would, yeah, there's evidence that Göbekli Tepe, Derin Deku's a cave system with something like 12 layers going down with a big rock system with a rolling thing from the top layer locking it down. So it does seem that the Bible, it does seem that the new Christian Bible that was written 100 AD to 900 AD. So there, Jesus died at 0, allegedly, if you want to believe that. If he died at 0, just hear me out, 2019 minus 2019, but yet the New Testament was written 100 years, 0, Jesus dying 100 to 900, and that tells you something there. Then you look at what other testamentary Christian, Gnosis, Catholic, whichever Bible we have, we've got the Greek and Hebrew transcripts, and we look at them and we know where them are dated, and from Judea and the times of Mesopotamia, Akkad, where Iraq is now, going back. And we look at that, and we look at the favoritism between the Greek writings and the Hebrew the Greek to the Romans, and the Hebrews got stuff to do with Elohim and the gods and plurals and singulars. It was the first little bit of a sign. When they write these books, for a dyslexic man, I find it incredibly hard to see that they miss out the vowels. When I was talking to Santos, and he says about the writings of antiquities and where to look, he says, be careful though, because some of the translations are a bit sketchy with the bigger words. And I says, why? Because when these lot written the scriptures, they took out the vowels, A, E, I, O, and U. And he said, so David, DVD in Hebrew, it means to divide the minds of men. I'm like, no way. And I said, so how do they know they've got all the right words? He says, well, that's it. You've got to read through the translations, not all, just the pre-Christian scriptures in Hebrew don't all have the, or full word, and they don't have the vowels in. So then we looked at that, and we made the comparisons between the Old Testament. That's quite vicious and harsh and forthright, and doesn't mess around. Evil, angry, and certain, fire and brimstone. is all I'll say.
It's the Talmud.
Yeah, the New Testament is quite laid back and it's got like the give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Well, that's very good for us, isn't it? We shall give to the establishment the taxes as you know as we should to conform. You know, that's the system would love that. The flood is referenced, ice caps melted all over. There's evidence of it.
Triassic
Yeah.
cataclysm.
And that's written. They've capitalised on that.
There's new evidence now. I think
True.
Hancock and his town.
Yeah.
Hancock and his mates, they're all talking about the large slides and the the meltwaters.
Turns out, yeah, it's melted. It was 10,000-ish years ago. Noah's story, the Genesis, the genes, agriculture. So yeah, agriculture started then. That's got the seeds. You think about it, the seeds of the corn and the ancient grains. We started to farm. We never farmed before. There's no evidence of it. The first time.
The evidence of all the farming, because they would have farmed near rivers,
And
all the rivers would have flooded, so all the evidence of farming would have
No, but there's always
30 or 40 metres down.
We would have found something by now, though, yeah, there's some we'd be looking at. We've got the aerial technology,
Find
we've got
evidence all the time,
satellites.
mate, but they don't
Yeah.
correlate it. They
You
don't
can see
correlate
through.
it to what is. They correlate it to their own time.
Yeah, because on that premise we find stuff like where they started doing stuff. We go to Sumer then, which is before Jesus. There are stories about Jesus and the cross and carrying the cross before Jesus, the zero time in the westernised stuff, in the Gnosis, and there's no evidences of.
It's astral theology.
There's no evidences of these civilizations coming up and building up. They just suddenly started shifting big blocks and was there. So there's two things there. They either had an accident somewhere else and scrambled off and ended up upon the shores and tried to salvage whatever they could, and that's why there's no lineage. Or there was an intervention and suddenly we just fucking started kicking arse for some reason. Yeah, Zoroastrianism is amazing. Samash, Enlil, Lilith. These kind of
Yeah, but all of these,
yeah,
all of these
archetypes. They're called archetypes.
Listening, they're all different names for the sun and the planets. That's all it is.
We've made that, yeah. That's
Different
That's
societies come up with different names for the gods.
And on that we'll go Jesus, Zeus.
Yeah, it's the sun. Yes,
Yeah,
us.
you've got Zeus,
Yes, us.
Jesus, you've got the Mercury, Mars, connections. Now, if you worship the sun, that's maybe quite a bad thing. I worship the sun being Mediterranean type, but I'm grateful to the one who created that sun, you know, as well. You've got pagans that worship sun, sun worshipping pagans. You know, I've gone around in circles with my research. Ra, sun god, going back to planets, Isis and Mary, Jesus. You've got Horus, Joseph and Mary, Isis and Osiris originally before this supposition, and then Jesus, which is Horus. Horus is the sun and the rising, but worshipping of the sun in some respects might be bad or classified as. Worshipping the creator that made it all might be a better thing to consider. Or go on, Steve.
Yeah, well, because of our proximity, the first thing the light of our life, the bringer of life, a light bringer, is the sun. It brings life.
It does. Yeah. I do worship it in some ways, but I don't think it's the real
Well,
end.
well, the moon is
It
That's
goes
right,
out of spiritual waters.
The
It could be a target. It could go through it. And go through somewhere else.
The moon is still alive. The moon.
Yeah, well, the moon's a construct by sun.
It's just a reflection.
That's
I
right.
agree with the main thrust of
It could even be holographic.
We've been lied to. Shit,
Well,
so,
in fact, the moon's actually there, but they
your language.
played hologram over it, right, like a
It's an illusion.
like a
Yeah. Field, a matrix.
built over it so that we see something different to what.
You take some DMT, the whole world opens up. It's scary. That's the first time I want light. It's like you've got to be brave to take that. Don't be like anxious
The
and
spectrum widens
Get ready
because
for
we
it.
only have a narrow spectrum
Don't be
of
scared.
sensors that are we can
See
perceive. Start taking DMT and it widens that spectrum.
little bits, yeah. It's just you got to go on the curve.
What, like mushrooms?
Anything like that, yeah. Little bit, yeah.
DMT,
Don't pick some in the field, and you'll open up and you'll find the pathway. You shouldn't have to. I'm just saying you can meditate, but just keep doing your research. And we've been lied to. We've been changed at some point. and this law is going back thousands of years. There is a continuum, and before the Judea, Jesus, 100 Romans, we had the civilizations of pre-Christian, and there's quite a lot of them, and they look like they was all connected, had one type of energy, the Vimanas and some magnetic
Closer to Buddhism
fluid,
or
magnets,
Hinduism.
fluid electricity, Prussia, Tataria. There's madness coming out all over. It's really, you've got to keep focused on what's relevant. The threats, the force of what? Not nature, the force of the law, the force, the Met Office, claims, family, blood, Boris and these front benches, they're doing a game here and it's playing with our lives. Brexit may happen and it could be like Germany economy crash, and we're going to be the victims. We always pay for everything. I need to know how to protect the family, how to protect you, how to get your assets protected, and how to get your claims on you.
All that stuff doesn't happen by accident. The economic collapses, all that.
Continuum, yeah.
It's a design. It's designed that way to control.
So this thing
They
coming
do
up,
it to test, in the same way that you test an experiment or a program, or putting variables to test it. Like putting the price of oil. And so people stop buying to buy
Christmas
oil.
is coming up, they'll have a little Middle East tangent now and it will go up 50p a litre because they've had a fallout or someone's got a drone.
Just to see what people social business.
When we can be using water and getting gas and like, why can't we use that as fuel then, boss? Well, that's too cheap. Get out, move, Why can't we pay benefits with love? Why are you killing folk? Like Jeremy Corbyn's proposed. We either have love or think we're going to get sacked, is what they're saying now.
Why does it have to be a benefit? A benefit is a bonus. Bonus for what? Should be there as a right.
what do you think they're playing at then for the end of this month? Is it United Kingdom that's left, leaving?
Who knows?
The pantomime of Brexit will continue.
You got any concerns about Brexit?
All the decisions are already made.
It doesn't matter.
Nobody's changing underneath the current is changing. The paradigm is changing.
Supplies of food, grain, sugar, basic
Spiritual
essentials.
energy is
Should be great, yeah. You get local cost of water and all the stuff, can't they? They've got phones and
Indirect,
yeah, that would be good incentives as well.
I mean, they'll do that anyway, but
It's part of
Any more
the
questions
flow into oblivion.
Anything you want to
And we
say?
raise back up.
Noticed?
We really just
I kind of agree with what I was going to say.
It's a sign, it's just a sign.
Do you get like where the various trusts are, with the idea of we can have a trust as a man and a man we can make an agreement because it's like a pact in the private and we can leave it at that and we can honour that and we can keep that for years and years and it can be done because we have that trust, and then we can appreciate the fact that we have a driving licence, a passport, a birth certificate. Hello there. What's your name? Yeah, that's our whole thank you. You don't have to. Thank you. You come down with it.
I'm sorry, mate. I didn't mean to be rude when I walked out of that college. Said like,
Drinks in there in the kitchen.
sorry, mate. I apologize for that.
Do you want to come forward on the front? We've got a camera thing here. Yeah, it's just doing a little bit of overall. It's all right. I don't need anyone's face. I'll edit it later. It's all good.
Should we have a quick tap break or?
Yeah, we can do if you want. And I'll do this presentation. We'll do an officer. I'll give you some rundowns on interaction. You can get up and we can sit there and we can do the private. We all know the standard way of how to get arrested. We all know that, so we do the other one. We go to the point and then we'll do that for a bit. We haven't had food or anything except for an hour and that. So there'll be something good. You asked about food, did you want to
I brought
Quick drink of wine, is that right?
Yeah. You're fixed. Any medical issues?
But when it's like, it's
Right. Yeah, that's it.
Sometimes it's a bit cute.
Yeah.
Say something
Just-
you buy it from group titles for dawn with a person
Yeah.
like Laird, or was it for a lady? Scottish title.
Excellent.
Oh,
It does.
it's not last, no.
Yeah.
And when you make a booking and you're title
Yeah.
if you press, they might upgrade you to the first class or VIP because they see Lord, Laird, Lady, you know, lady, and it's quite
What do
interesting.
you say about your passport? Expiring?
Yeah.
And I have to renew it, and I put all the person, signed me on liability, and I believe it did, and sent it off and come back for the care of address. With all these warrants, council tax and PCNs, and I thought, oh no, you know, this is it. You're going to have to go through the road and I was preparing. And then it's not nice having someone over your shoulder and
Yeah.
those of you that do that as well, I hate that.
Yeah.
And nothing happened. And then when I'm going away to see
Yeah.
French, it was France, the border, going to Marie to see Mum. It wasn't made, and I thought, oh, they get here, they got, it's on this ferry, you know.
So did you
Yeah.
They scanning on the ferry to go out, and they gave my passport, the new one, with everything on, from Hamlin to Jeremita, warrants will be issued for Jeremita. 6 years, because I couldn't bother changing it, after I did the default, and well, I knew warrants would be Jeremita, so I thought, I'll use Hamlin, I'm not going to go and change that. So I changed it, I got into Jeremita, only recently, and then when I went to the
Yeah.
on the way back home, drove into the ferry, got checked, he said, get out, off you go, and I saw a free bit, and that was UK Customs Border Control and Search, and I went right on into there. With all these things, doing what I do, and that's when David, your friends, and I didn't know, I was that eager, rushing, I went, what do you mean, my friends, and obviously it was UK Border Passport Control. I didn't do research in there. It's obviously get out of the one.
Because mine's expired in June, I thought, well, I'm going to leave it.
No,
So I
I'm
figure out
been great for you.
what I want to do.
I lost a little one.
Has anyone done, or tried out gold?
Excuse me, Craig, it's on a video that you can use lots of zeros, and it's just not up to zeros, so if you're making it.
Oh, I'm not.
I'm
not gonna do it, I mean, that's
try anything, I'm quite, all right to go with that, I think I've always done it, and I'm want to roll the boat, and say, oh, but I know where I am, and I'll prove that, but that's why, I love it, someone just spoke, and said, yeah, I've done this, I've done that.
Yeah.
Emphasis comes into play there, but even when you speak correctly, and you point all this out to the officers, they just look at you blanks, you know, they write back to you, they don't know what you are. Honestly, like the DVLA said to me, regarding private property and titles, all vehicles are subject to tax, insurance, MOT. It's written to you, it's the titles, liabilities have changed. Yes, there is insurance and MOT and tax on all of these horses still, and they're going to still have, well, one has them, but at the time they had, I said, you know, I pointed it all out, there was a sale, and you wouldn't have it, it's plausible deniability. You have to force it in the judicial realm.
Yeah, because I've been
90%. It's him, he's the most basket.
I was upset in Salzburg and arguing with them, they just wanted to do anything.
They're not even government, how did they even do it's a separate agency, entity of what? Of a business. Alright, so as Kev said, UK, United Kingdom, corporate, contract, you can't get out of it, I'm afraid, and we're not well. It's insane, there's a bloke emailed me and he's done his plane, so he's done this, he's done that, he's been arrested, the money's come away. Apparently he's coming today, 40 grand. I was like, on the live video, and I says, he can't see the Facebook. Turns out it might be. I'm just thinking of Bobby Brown beating up that poor singer. Sorry. I wouldn't, I didn't think he was really in there. He said he might be coming over from Ireland. Do his thing. Have a cigarette, do his presentation, get through anybody that needs it, and then give us 10 minutes. And then I'll go this way. We're here till 5. Well, as long as you want.
Yeah.
not held, so.
Like some of
Yeah,
the-
so
I'll
I'll
take some details from them. I've got an email list here, if you want to get on there, I've got some names and whatnot.
That's it.
I'll put my name in there and get a pen.
Yeah, they all.
Toilets are just being to the left by the kitchen. Alright, there's a kitchen, you need a wee. Sorry, I forgot that. Your fire escapes are right, get out whenever you can. Not no medical issues or that, have you? We're all
Yeah.
good. Some water, buddies, t-shirts, something like that. That's all you'll still.
Speaking to side of the bed.
Yeah.
Something like that, you know what I mean, or cross problems. Yeah, and put on some healing tools.
Yeah.
Vibration tools and lay between, so that the vibration of everything. And it helps to realign,
Yeah.
treat yourself. Yeah, so you're there to get some spiritual relief. Yeah, because that's what people will be. Yeah, and I don't.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely had a good go at breaking it. Yeah.
Till we know better.
Yeah,
Till we know better.
absolutely. And now the damage is done.
It can be undone.
Oh yeah, I totally agree.
Right, it's a reverse of what put you into that position.
Yeah.
And it's every way at the moment now, I'm suffering with chest nerves. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've tried the exercise, I've tried everything. It gives me temporary relief, but it's just not lasting. You know?
Yeah.
So, and what I need is short remission. So maybe.
Yeah, I've been using too. I've been using recently some ultra low frequency sound. I've got a.
Did bicarbonate soda as well?
Yeah, I've been doing.
Have you been doing it?
Yeah.
Half a teaspoon a
In
day.
a shot in a small glass of water. I do it.
Every day. Yeah, that alkaline.
That's relatively new to me. But I
Right,
have.
you know, from your growing days, have you still got a pH test?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
Electronic.
Yeah.
Right. Test your piss.
Yes.
Right, you need to be over 7.
Yeah.
You need to be alkaline.
Yeah. 7 to 8. I reckon.
Eight
Well, you
might
could
be,
be-
8 could be a bit high.
Yeah.
If you go as far as 8,
Yeah. You got.
don't maintain it for any more than a month.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and bring you back down, bring you back down to 7, you be around about 7. Just go to 7 or something like that. And then you know that your pH balance is right.
Yeah.
And then
Yes, I mean that's something I'm saying. Many ways it's the best. I think that's probably.
there's nobody living that hasn't got fucking.
No, absolutely. I agree. We're all.
Yeah, we're all of us got.
But I think that's causing. That's probably the main thing. Like you're saying, only recentering. It starts with this, and this is where I'm having most of my problems at the moment.
But, you know, it depends on the problems are, you know, but you've got to learn to accept what you can't change.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I know, and go, leave it. That's a lesson, learn a lesson, move on.
Move on. Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's done.
Yeah, there's no return though, you know what I mean? All our bills, relationships, all that stuff. It's the only work, isn't it? I don't think before we get out,
Yeah.
all that will straighten out.
Yeah.
It'll straighten out.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I say depression at them. It's been suffering for a while, but it's even really.
There's not to be fucking happy around. You know?
No, I know, but
You're always
it's,
stressed.
I'm stuck in the house, man.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Don't help.
I'm sure. I never move anywhere, do I? I don't move anywhere, but I won't let it get me down. And I don't really shrink. If I'm, you know, 6 months of sessions.
Yeah.
But don't do something. And I know it is, it just like, once you see this stuff, once you start getting into what the world's all about and how it's being run, and the fuckers that are being running it.
It is soul destroying, isn't it? It's,
You can't leave it that, but you can either go, you give up, or you can go, fuck this, I don't know this, and you can fight back,
start the fight. Yeah.
start the fight, just fight back.
Yeah, I think I threw myself in sort of 3 years ago after Graham and I sort of perfected what we were doing. And then I'm one of these people, I want to help everybody. And I did to a degree, and then I realised actually now what I've done is broken myself. by being so involved and doing everything I possibly could for everybody, and now I need it, I haven't got it in me. Do you know what I mean? That's what's
Right,
happening.
well, yeah, I don't know exactly like that. You do burn that. You get fit for doing it.
Well, it's just
When
like,
it
you
comes to
know,
doing it for yourself.
you get people on the phone telling you that, you know, these women are on the phone telling you think they're taking their life and their kids' lives, but I ain't going to change this shit. You know, and you're trying to keep people calm and give them some direction.
So what
And,
the tick on
So,
your
yeah,
So the next time if you take any job like that, you have to look to the future.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Cause and effect.
yeah. No, you're right.
It's like, we were sat watching this stuff at home, comfortable on the couch. And my mate was saying, you pretty much says, "God," I says, "Careful. Once you start,
Yeah.
you're gonna start coming.
Yeah,
And you have enough time to do it, whether you want to or not."
exactly how it happens.
So we've just been a miserable bugger. I mean, I went away at night, and so he kept coming back and saying, he said, "Right, you go." I said, "I've warned you, haven't I?" Right, and I'm on the way to the cinema. Fucking next day.
Yeah,
You can't have a break now. I told you,
Yeah.
it starts falling. You've got to keep going with it until it stops.
yeah. That's the problem with it.
That's that. And it's running up and down.
Stepping back's really hard, isn't it? From all this. Once you've got involved in it and the ball's rolling.
You can't go back to sleep. There's no going back, is there?
No, it's definitely,
It's a bugger of trick.
it's a sort of, yeah, it's
So oblivious.
a pill moment.
Let's sort some water in the kitchen, didn't we?
Yeah,
That's it, all the joke.
Does anybody want water?
I've got some, got
All right.
You can't, innit?
Enjoy the drink.
Yeah, you
And yours, find yours spend a fair bit of time researching all of this. Reading
I
stuff.
mean, I've been solid at it for the last 5 or 6 years. Research, absolutely everything.
Yeah. I've been like that for the last 2.
You find you go through stages with it, don't you? You know, you go from mild curiosity to intense curiosity and then anger.
Yeah.
And you phase out for a bit, you know, get flattened with it, you can't be arsed looking at it.
Yeah.
You get back to it and something else comes in you.
Yeah, you've got to get over the anger. Yeah, can't deal with any of it like that.
No.
It's always been there, thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
Even before it was there, there were people doing it. It's always been there.
Oh, this stuff's entrenched, isn't it? I mean, that's what I mean. We ain't going to unravel it in 5 minutes, are we?
No, that's right, no. It needs flattening and completely rebuilding.
Yeah, it does.
You know,
Or at least put it back to what it's meant to be.
But in one system that's doing what it's supposed to be, nothing. No, no works.
Everything. As
It's not
I
as
say, when you
efficient as
realise,
it should or could.
Mm.
You know, so the advances in technology, the stuff the sneak actors opening down left, you know, your little folk can sing and dance and do all sorts of stuff. Like your car can't run along but pedal. You know, a lot of aircraft now, the turbines, the fuel they use is minimal. They're in a compressed air.
Yeah, I was watching that.
I was watching
Plane
something.
crew.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so what's all this bullshit about the fuel that I octane this and it's not about that?
We explained 9/11 then as well.
Well,
Well,
When they're not carrying fuel on that volume.
9/11 were a controlled explosion
No,
using,
no.
using tactical nuclear devices that have been there from the building.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
planned to go down when they built it. They built it to go down.
I am.
That's how long ago it was planned.
Well, it was fuel was there.
All right, I
do, mate.
They're covered stories and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, voice in the background.
It went through
In the dark,
Yeah.
yeah. And the quick How's things?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
There's no story there.
Just about got him in today.
It's not, I remember seeing it when it happened. I just couldn't believe it. I was watching it, and I couldn't believe it. That car.
Right, yeah, I can get up to that one. Yeah, so probably we can get a few more people here.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Private
I
planning.
mean, it's
and,
rolling
you know,
until 4,
the
you know.
government had to shut down.
You know,
That
it's
place to get into that house.
that's just literally something like that. Yeah, he's talking about.
You know, that's what the systems are there for.
It's funny, that was really
Introduction to sort of thing, you know.
probably not.
Yeah, we
as
came
bad
up from,
at the time. I
started
didn't
at
say it's bad.
grade
But I didn't
SW20,
watch,
Wimbledon.
even then I wasn't really
And
watching
I'm
it.
just buying here for airports.
It was only late in the start of the week, something like that. In the start of the week.
And then, he come and met us this morning and he followed me over here.
And now you realise virtually everything in the public is fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just so, it's scripted. You know, the twists and turns.
As you say,
Yeah, I think
That just makes me see that is, you'll think that's a bit too long, and might change.
Yeah,
It's the same thing with us, when I'm not going on the street, you might change the system. One or two things going on, say that.
Oh, they're sanctioning me left, right, and centre. I want to go down the pit route though, because I've got some problems.
Okay. Well, we can tell you exactly how that's going. Give you all the paperwork for that, no worries. Yeah, I think exactly, that's you can end up at tribunal, that's the reality of it.
Okay.
But you might as well do that from the off,
Yeah.
than sit and wait 12, 15, 20 weeks for it to go, now you ain't still nothing, and then have to do what we do. Do it right from the beginning, because there's probably not much more to it anyway, so you might as well just kick them right from the beginning,
Yeah.
and go for it.
Okay.
But I won't forget you.
Okay, thank you for being. Is anyone else want a drink? On the drink run.
They was used to like reading that in the toilet, it's been sprinkled, like
Yes.
sweetie, why the sweetie?
I've seen that. Yeah, your granny always has that.
Yeah.
No, it's right, let's see how we go, skip through this.
I'm not going to make something like that. Just
Yes, therapy, trees, roots.
Yeah, so you're going to pick it up on there, pick it up on here, plug it in
So
there.
I try it there actually, yeah, for what it's worth.
It's very important to me, it's on back of my mind.
Yeah, it's not the internet, it's just the internet, but it's a bit sketchy there, so as long as I'm doing the presentation. No, it's private, it's streaming to the YouTube, but it's not listed, so no one can see it. So it's just more the audio than that, and then I'll stop it and I'll do a presentation at home and then edit it into it, so then but I'll just do the minutes, it's just more so I've got the minutes so I can make notes, and then because we've got international .com members, they can't all obviously come here to the meeting and I can't get to them, so I'll review it and then do the minutes and what we've discussed, so it's accurate.
Yeah.
It's just like the audio, but I need that.
Yeah.
It's all good, bless you.
Don't worry about summer.
The security, you're technical.
I've been trained to worry.
I'm just going to skip through this and see how we go. It's going to be a scenario, I'm going to go backwards and forwards on it, and it's about an officer trustee. It's quite raw and new, so it will be susceptible to changes and wordplay errors, but the basic premise is I'd like to go through this with a rank and file officer. One day I'd like to sit Preston Dick, whoever rank and file officer, Crime Commissioner. I'm not messing around, I've got the confidence now to meet them toe to toe and to get to save their asses. I don't hate the officers, I shouldn't imagine that any of you do, but you do have times where we are angry with them, their lack of flexibility within things. So they often, you'll see them on a street-based scenario and they will be doing a stop and search, and in this day and age I don't really feel that any objection to saying hello to an officer and just having a chat. I've nothing to hide, not a criminal, and I know you're not. So I don't see why any of us shouldn't be able to interface with someone who's effectively a trustee and say, hey, you know, not a problem, we'll chat. But in this day and age, you often find that when they approach, they are not always friendly, and it isn't a benefit to man to engage with an officer, a policeman. Think of Life of Brian. There's a sketch where the two men in a corner by a cage chatting quite fluently, and a Roman officer comes in, and soldier, centurion, and he asks them if they've seen Brian, for argument's sake, and they proceed from having a fluent, intelligent conversation to stammering and going, he's mad, he is. Yeah. And the officer's like, centurion's like, yeah, shut up, and he walks away. Now that's a very important scene, because for one, they were chatting, and they show you that they can chat. They're very good at chatting. They command the language well. They understand the centurion wants information about a man they may be friends with, and they don't want to give that information. So now, with the legalese that I've learned, you go to a court, a vessel in dry dock, and an officer on the street. Are you the driver? Are you the vehicle owner? Such things. It's not English. Babble, it's their language. They don't know they're speaking that. They haven't been trained, I don't think, at the correct level, which is unfair. It's a disadvantage, their disadvantage, as much as we are in some respects, and it's causing friction. So, you know, like with Brian, legalese and Anglo, him, centurion, they were chatting, he comes along, suddenly they can't speak to him. Now, is it they don't want to? Yeah, or why? Or who's written the script? John Cleese and who's it? Monty Python, who heralded all around the world for. I see these shitbags and what they're belittling the principle of Christ in itself was enough of a controversy. So I'm drifting, but just hear me out. That in itself is them telling you in many things in one, but we just look at it as a comedy. But it's layered. It really is out there with the little. They tell it you plain sight information sometimes, and it takes a bit for it to settle in. So there is a language difference. There is them thinking they are above. We are thinking we're equal, and it doesn't always go too well. And they're generally looking for areas of, you know, what's your name, your address. These are legal areas for what you're asking for. None of these belong to a man, and they would never ask for anything belonging to a man, ever, unless it's a murder and you're being charged with common law. Murder is like Americans' first degree common law, you know, manslaughter, murder. That's equitable. When I say equitable, it's you have actually committed a crime. It's not a criminal offence. It's crime or it's an offence. The criminal offence is the oxymoron part. So we know that murder and taking a life is number one against the covenant we have with the, you know, creators as you see it, or not if you're not that way inclined. But we would argue as a mass, you don't take life in general because it is wrong on a universal level, no matter what. So it's very interesting. The terminology at the petrol station, it's a criminal offence to fill up your tank and not pay. No, it's not. I thought I had my wallet, mate. You know, I'm an honourable man under God. I'm not a criminal because I haven't got funds, credits, promises to pay for this, what I owe, that come from our mineral rights. And so it's very, very technical for me, these oxymorons that we have, which is why we make a point of pointing them out, because they're there to mess your head up. They told me at school, yes, criminal offence, rule of law. Is it a rule of a company, a policy, a policy, ICE, off ICEs, ICE, water, boat people? That's just in itself madness. Or is it law? And now the force, the police force, they are the force. The family that dress up. So they get up and they put a uniform on and they're a king for a day. Effectively now, yeah, and we could all put a uniform on and purport to look exactly like that and go around or do the chicken stance and start asking questions and knocking on doors. It's just that just shows you who they are. That doesn't mean to say they have power. When you see that, my stepdaughter Yanka said that the police scared her. I asked her, what do you think of the police? They've been to the school, they've talked about drugs, she's got a friend called Charlie, and they told them about Charlie and the nickname, and they've all had a big laugh because they've got a friend called Charlie, and it turns out Charlie's a drug name, and so the 12-year-old girls have all come, oh my God, I'm like, what, that's my job. I teach the stuff like that for you, I would like to decide. Anne-Marie, did you know about this? No. What? You didn't know? Did you consent? Well, you did because you send her every day. What am I asking? So you have no choice. They don't have to tell you shit. They do what they want. They send the black guys, the guys dressed in black to go and scare 12-year-old assets, sons and daughters, and talk about drugs. And it just seemed that they were scared and they had a bad impression of the police force. Where are you going? Are you carrying anything? They will say, upon your person. But I just want to leave it like that because, you know, that's basically the premise what they're after. And they'll be looking for, if there's an incident going off, or a reported incident, or a spate of, or you look like somebody who's just stolen something from a shop and they're doing, you know, security, could be police, PCO, a plainclothes officer, that would be a different thing, but you know, those are the legal issues of the identity that they will ask. They won't ask for a thumbprint, they won't ask for a coat of arm, and they won't ask for a seal. They will want simple, personable items of, hello there, brother. You just make it come on. So, thank you for coming. Well done, everybody, for a Sunday. It seemed a good idea at the time. I'm not sure now. These are certain situations where you can be stopped and searched without reasonable grounds. No warrant, no paperwork. They just come up to you and say, right, we want a word. And we all have to. I'd like to think my kid had gone missing, my missus, whatever, and he was on the street, and you may have seen something, then you just stop because you can help. That's all we're doing. We're not obliging, we're not contracting, we're just saying, all right, there's a shadowy figure wants to chat to us. And now, we're talking about search being the key point without reasonable grounds. So why can they search you without reasonable grounds? There's a risk, there's a common law risk, and there may be harm, injury happening, and you must try to acknowledge that. And you know, you're going to be searched now because they believe you may have some information, you could have been the one doing something, you might be drunk, you know, and there may have been a I'm sorry to use this, but it's just come to my mind, it's a relevant thing, and it's a weekend family issue, and there's a phone call to the police, and it's a simple domestic, and now they want to come and have a check on you because they want to get some monies. You know, it's a civil issue, nothing happened at home, but they want to check you, you're drunk, and they may want to take you to the station, you know, so for questioning. So they want to search you and check that you're all right in a home, on the street, whether it be a crime or a domestic, could be anything, it could be in your vehicle, horsey, and they may have reasons to want to search, you know, so the senior police officer may grant that. They can't just say, we are searching you because we are here and it's happening. They have to have reasonable suspicion, not the grounds, it's a suspicion for that, and they'll give you details of that for why they want to search you. And it normally, in all instances, will be because of a violent crime taking place. In London, there's a lot of stabbings, so they're picking it up, they've got a job to do, to shank in, so we want them to do that. The middle class, if, you know, not all of us are, but especially the middle class have got a lot of nudging ability in there, you know, and winks, and you know, they are connected. We're at the bottom, just catching the crumbs. So when they get scared and they put these things out, you can rest assured that the middle class and the hoi polloi and the ones with stocks and shares and gold and bonds and property to worry about when the have-nots, you know, revolt, they make noise. And this is a kind of a game with politics in the way, with the crimes and the threats. So if you are carrying a weapon and you are in London and stuff and the police come up to you, then we want them to take them off them. So they're going to do society a favour. We want them to be safe. I don't want any harm to come to them. I'd like us all common law sheriffs. We are all common law sheriffs in essence, but I call it universal law. We realise common law is public and it comes with its fallacies and its dangers. We have a covenant, an agreement, this general, decent, and even if it was on another planet, if half of this room here went to another planet, I'd like to think that you would employ what you employ here on that one and instill it as we went forward somewhere else as a basic, and I wouldn't need to tell you that, you have that with you. So we have the respect and we recognise the need, and I want to just you know, make sure that we all, you know, if you don't feel like that, then that's because the officers are hostile, they've got their backs up, they're not very polite, they might have a bad day, the boss might have kicked their ass, and so they come out and they're in a bad mood, and it's very hard to try and keep that upper hand. I sometimes don't always win. the area, location, wrong time, and you suspected drugs, might be smoking a joint, and they might have smoked the weed, and it's a plainclothes officer behind you, so therefore now they've radioed the mates back up, because they won't do it on their own, and then they'll all come in and say, right, we have a chat, you know, it's not always a bad thing.
Yeah, we've got a load of those special areas popped up at the moment because I'm out by Heathrow because of the Extinction Rebellion lot and the drone threats. So they're just throwing them up all over the place, and anywhere in that area they basically do what they like. But they've got they're using blocking, so there's no drones. If you've got any drone, none of it will take off, and they're blocking the whole lot all the time. Over there. You just walk into these areas and basically it's free for them to do whatever they want to.
They've got the Terrorism Act to do a lot. The rights, you see, are quite far and few between. If these want to, they will. So I'm trying to get the basic key competence to this grading test. You are going to be tested on this via the .com, and I'll bring up the quiz format for you to see as well. And this is both. I'm doing both scenarios in one. We're going to go through this one, which is a standard stop, search, arrest, maybe detain coming afterwards. But we all know the first way, the public way, and how it goes, and going to the court and saying you are, stepping into the dock, worst case scenario, having to face a custodial sentence. So we all know and aware, aren't we, of the normal way, the standard way of being arrested and paying your fines, fees, levies as the person. And I'll swap it, I'll tell you when we're going to go private, and I'm just going to make sure you follow me on a few points. So you are going to be informed why you can stop without reasonable grounds. The officer's going to ask you for legal items here, Dave, about your name for your person, you know, your person's name. They're not asking you to call in, they're asking for the person's name, the person's date of birth, the address and postcode. So normally we give that, we get out a driving licence, we get out whatever we have, and we provide that. They will radio through, they will look for identity. Now it comes into the man, if you're in a station and whatnot, they're always, when they're booking in scars, fixtures, unique identifying, they you know, so they do look at the man, but they're after the person to join the two. This is the other side, you know, but that's what they're asking for, your legal stuff. And they're going to ask you why, where, the five, you know, who, what, why, where's, which is fine. And they're going to ask you about carrying on your person. They're going to search you and inform you of that search on your person. Now they find a bit of weed or a controlled substance and something you shouldn't have, but not, you know, dangerous. As such, you may be self-medicating because you've got testicular pain and the doctor can't fix it. This happened to me some years ago, so I use it, and he stopped me and he just took it off me. I says, I've got bollock pain, mate. I've been to the doctor 4 times. He was a male officer, and I was in the car smoking Buddha, and he says, in Sheffield, and he says, and what's happened? I says, I think I've got a cyst or something. I'm waiting for an op. No drugs work. I can't drink. I'm required to drive, and this works to treat me. I'm not harming anybody. You can take me in and whatever, but as soon as you take it off me, I'll be buying some more tomorrow. Because once you have this pain, pal, I says, there's nothing that touches it. He goes, oh, you poor little shitbag. And he goes, get me have a look. He took it, smelt it, and he says, I'll get on your way. And that was it. So, you know, it's not always the be all and end all. They are all right sometimes, and if you're nice with them, I'm not saying there's times that they are arrogant and, you know, they jumped up, but they've got to follow this process, no matter what mood they're in, no matter, you know, how they found you. They have this to follow, and the way to conduct themselves, and they find that substance, so they will inform you of your rights. And we've covered about understanding. You have the right to remain silent. That is a right if you give them information. You know, they say that it may be taken and used in evidence against you. So that you, to you, they don't say Mr. Jeremita or David, they say you. It's very ambiguous now, we're getting into it all, but they read you the rights and they say, do you understand? I would argue that you would say under duress, there is no consent here. People say no comment, and no comment is a kind of an answer, a deferred answer. They're looking for an answer, so deferred answer.
And they can infer from no comment. That's why you remain silent. Don't say anything.
Yeah, like, if you say, are you asking me, are you ordering me? Because if you order them, then you're going to get a bill for it.
Yeah, that's later, that's a bit vexation. It's a bit vexation, keep it simple.
Yeah. They're like us, aren't they? They are rules.
Don't give them
These people are
Does
also-
anybody remember Theresa May on the TV or the YouTube saying ruled by police by consent? Has anybody seen that video?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel, I put it around somewhere, there is a Theresa May, police by consent for civil issues, civilian, civil procedure rules, civil, army, civis, army, civilian, civil procedure, CD, army. Yeah, alright, don't worry. Yeah, well, that's why we don't consent, because it's a military, civilian, civil thing, and bless you, Dave. Yeah, so under suspicion of committing a crime. Now, is it a crime to be, because we're telling you it's a substance, what's happening in reality, they're telling you now it's a criminal offence. Here's the oxymoron, which one is it? Well, here we go. So to keep this at bay, that's fine then. You must now, alright, for the ones that are going to pick, you could argue they get rid of it on the street. Well, you've got quite a large amount in many bags in the Iron Horse, we'll say, going live, and so they're taking you because they've got you before. It's not your first time. You've got 4. There's a few bags around. He's in a bad mood. He's taking you down to make an example of you. That's where we're at. Station booked in, desk, custody sergeant, and you're going to have everything taken off you. Like I said about the phone number under the bell, it's a weird thing to do. For those that weren't here, when you get taken to that stage and you've got your mobile and you want to ring Smithy, but you've only got Smithy's number as the root in memory 3, and I don't know the number or the missus, Anne-Marie, I'm not sure of her number entirely, so if they take that from me and I haven't got any paper anywhere or a backup, anything, then I'm going to be sorry man when I can't remember a number to ring. So you could argue that your property has been taken and you need your phone to make that call, but he's in a bad mood, he shouldn't even really be there, he could have let you off, and he might not give you your phone. The desk sergeant's going to want you to sign in and consent for this criminal offence. Now that's up to you and what you believe. I would argue that if you put any signature anywhere, you've consented. You've given the signature. Can you sign under duress at the desk? I think it'd be better just to say nothing, no consent, full, carry on as you need to go on and stick to it. You start going, oh well I'll sign, but I'll put a bit of this there, and later on you forget to and you fall down, well they don't recognise, so they don't really like you to mess them around as such with the fancy paraphernalia. They recognise consent and no consent, so much as shields and stamps and past syntax, quantum grammar isn't going to work in desk booking in sergeant scenario. Let me tell you, it will vexate him, you'll think you're on drugs, so I'm trying to help you do what you want, but you just no consent, no signing, it's a bit of bud, I'm self-medicated, it's a plant from God, God told me I'm allowed to smoke it, just for argument's sake, you know, and that's it, and you can do what you want with me, I'm not having anything to do with that, I'm not signing out, and you know.
Don't be a rasta.
Yeah, that's it. So then you look at how you want, but you know, book you in, custody, booking, fines. That's what they're at. You're going to be in a cell on your own. Now, if you've got medical conditions, you need to make them aware of that, and they should honour that. And they're looking at holding you for an interview to give you, you know, a chance to answer for yourself.
If you're in there,
Yeah.
in that scenario, you've not signed anything, you've not said a word, because they might have to go in there anyway. Does that affect your release?
So that affects your release? No, because they've got so many hours to hold you in charge or release you. So no, because the law doesn't say if you don't sign, that period of mandatory holding maximum is now gone up to an indefinite amount.
So it would just be a question of opening door and off you go. So
exactly, yeah, like a conscientious objector in a war or something, you know, it's the equivalent of that. It's a battle and a war. Do you want to participate and engage in the war? No, I don't. Well, how do you spell that? No, I'm not signing. There's one way. In telling them that verbally, under duress, you are there, aren't you? You haven't chosen to go there. You haven't got a witness, a victim, sorry. You've got a witness to say that there's a possible infraction of a public code. You know, a policy, a policy. The officer has seen that the policy, you know, has been, and he's noticed, not iced, you know, and the police, and that's why you are there at the station. And you're going to be having 24 hours in which to conduct the interview and lay a charge. Before then, you're required to be released without the charge, whether or not you sign or not, and that will be pending inquiries or on bail, you know, with the inquiries, and you'll report to the police station, or they'll dismiss everything. But they'll hold you for the maximum 24 hours, you know, if they so choose to, you know.
David, quickly as well, when
No,
they,
take your time, there's no
when they let you go, and they've taken, say, your phone and your wallet off you, whatever,
Yeah.
And now they're going to let you go, they're going to give you this all back, but they want you to sign for it. What do you do then in that situation?
Well, it's theft then of personal property, so I've never been in that situation, so I'll just hypothetically say, it's your property, they've taken it from you, they want you to sign for it, I require the restoration of my property forthwith. If you require a signature, I'm not willing to give one. I require restoration of my property, otherwise it's theft. I didn't sign for you to take it from me, remember?
Yeah.
And you took it from me without a signature, so you can give it me back without a signature. Boom. No, but come on. Not sorry, don't forget, but I've never been in that situation. But just think of the what you signed to take it now.
I would
You
say
signed
there's
to
the
be there
witness.
now. We got shit.
You took my
So
stuff.
if it comes to it, they say we're not giving you back. That's someone else until you sign without liability. There we go. See this man a minute.
All right,
Hello, Si.
yeah, that's about.
Oh my
What?
God.
Who's that? What's that going on?
Oh,
Someone brought the dog.
Was that Josh?
Looking round for it.
Was that Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's man from Ireland, Simon. Josh is How was we? Let me sit down.
Come on.
We're dealing with a long time.
Oh, signing property, so
No,
if then they say you're not having this property till you sign for it, then I sign with liability, all rights reserved, under duress, and you only sign to get your property back.
VC it. If it's to get your property back, to get an arsehole, just VC, sign it, get it over and done with. Thank you very much. I had to do that under duress, they won't give it back to me. Job done.
You can't be held accountable. You told me to get your property back. You're not contracting to say you're guilty of all that charge. But you didn't sign, as I said it first, try that one, restoration theft.
Could you sign it void?
What do you mean?
Sign void.
No.
That's what I mean, it's just a receipt for your goods, isn't it?
X, put an X there. If they accept an X, that's legally thingy, isn't it?
Just make it up, mate. Just sign it with some moody signature you've never done before. That will do.
Well, just a ministry will do, it?
That is my signature.
Johnson
Where'd you get that from?
Good question,
It's my signature.
Come on then. So now we're going to go private. We're going to do it as we know. But now we're going to go private. So they're going to ask you for your name again. Your name, our name it starts with a capital letter and it's a description. It's a noun and it describes an object or a thing. You know, but not us. It's a cup. CUP, capital C. Cat, you know, CAT, capital C. It's the name of an animal. David is a name I am sometimes known to go by when it is a benefit to me. This is something that I cannot get out of my... It's been 5 years and I still cannot stop saying sometimes my name is David. And I know full well it's not, so good luck with this. Identity, now you've got in, and then you've got entity. Josh can go later if he gets here, amazing, or we'll get him on my house in a hangout. But you know, this entity, you know what a spiritual, as I say, courts and spirits, entities, appearances, ghosts and energies, and then your ID. Is your ID. Where's your ID? For the entity, ID and entity. It's just madness. And Smithy and I in the farm, we have a calling.
Yeah.
You have a calling. Your mum calls you. You know, whatever.
Hiding the entity.
Madness. I never saw it. It's just there in your face. Things just
Only
present. You know,
yeah.
hello, and you're like, I didn't see that before. Nice one. So, into the private way, as opposed to the public way, you're going to give your Christian name or your given name. If you're not a Christian, if you're a darker skinned family member and you're not of the Christian, you know, even if you're Jamaican, whatever, it's non-Christians, you would give the calling. And why? Is that your full name? My name is David. Here's the role play. I have your full name. Yes, my full name is David, or David Jason. Where's the surname? I don't claim a surname. I don't have a surname. The family name is Jeremita. Ah, well, I need a surname. Well, why do you need a surname? You know why they need a surname? For the contract and the associated liability, or what we call joinder. But joinder's not so much as, if you search this word, it's hard to find. I'm not sure if I found it in Blacks, but it's a bit ambiguous. Because it is,
Surname in Black's law, isn't it? Is it something like rising up from the underground or something?
many things and definitions, but it's not good. I've got a
Yeah,
document
it's
of
not.
the history of surnames and the way the Bible was, and babies born, lamb, marriage, matrimony, and all of this was done in accordance with the Bible.
Sir means under.
There you go. Yeah. And you
Can't definitively say.
it's something to do with that, yeah. It's like
It's there to
And
undermine
you've
the
got a
code.
surcharge as well. Remember that one? There's phonics of the there's surcharge, surname. So undercharge, undername, boom. Yeah. But it's just spelled differently to disguise the grammar Oxford, so the cognitive. You can go now then.
In the
You've
time.
got to take it back to the Latin. Break it down into syllables.
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah. It's
If
just,
you can't find it in the Latin, look at it.
that's right. Yeah. Latin, menage a trois.
In the time of Christ, there were no surnames.
Yeah.
Surnames.
There you go.
Surnames derived from when slavers had slaves. They would give you their surname, and you're actually operating with a surname without a license to use that surname.
Yeah.
What was that? What's that?
It's not good.
What's that? Not good.
Not manifest.
slave either name.
Yeah.
Slave either surname. Slave
Any name that came after you, the name of where you came from, probably not sure.
So you're all good with the name, date of birth, and so surname, date of birth. What else did I say? Anything else there? You're giving your identity, what I asked for, that's it, yeah? So I want you to claim the name and the liability with it, the Mr. Are you Mr. David? Are you Mr. No, I'm not. And where are they? You're playing games with me. No, it's just, that's how I present. I'm a private man in the private. I have a person. You get your wallet out. Come on, look, he's getting careful.
We're going to have to have your beer, aren't they? Come on, because you've got so much to share.
You can have it. What do you want to know?
It's just a name.
Well,
You don't want
the answers are all in there, you've just got to ask the question.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't get out, Mark, don't talk to me.
Yeah, you're already in trouble.
Don't worry.
I'll be studying for another 6 weeks.
We're going to change in the circle a bit later on, we can have a good old conversation again. See where everybody's at.
We want to know, don't we? It's not just between you two. We want to know as well.
So I'll repeat it in a minute. Some great stories of interactions with police officers,
What's the secret here?
especially in front of my missus, who's a police officer. Oh yes, coming in triumphant, going, see, you got no power, you bitches.
Another one bites the
Yeah, really great on Christmas Eve to do to your missus. Yeah, good old Kev. Yeah. Do not mix with alcohol.
I'm not saying that about officers, because his missus is an officer. It's just the family members, they're everywhere, they're not just scum and filth and 5-0 and that. They're just us, in a bind, to be fair. They're generally middle class and not working class and white and arrogant, I would say that most I've met, but they are us, and we need to consider them. And they need to consider us. And when we are in a private, we will go for the family, tribe or estate name, not a surname. We have a family name. It's as simple as that. Oh, are you a free man? No, I'm private. There's a difference. I'm not a free man. If you're making a claim that I am, please provide proof of. And, what language do you speak, officer? Just stop him there. Are you a constable or an officer? What's the difference? Well, the constable is for me, an officer works for the crown. Which crown do you serve? What language are you speaking? Oh, then they don't like it. And they're the ones coming to you with the alleged authority. So the capacity is private, not free man, and the surname is a family tribe or an estate. They don't understand that on the street, which is why I'm willing to present this when it's finished to them and let them take the test that we're building. The officer will then ask you for the date of birth, and as we say, man's date of birth is hearsay in essence. We can argue about when you're born and what happens at the GRO and the date of registration. That's coming later after this basic bit. So just for the premise, a man and the date of birth is hearsay, and your date of birth, the person they're after is a person, legal fiction, an estate, an instrument, a conveyance. Fictions are dealt with dictions, a dictionary, diction, Aries, talking about the stars. Aries is in diction, Aries, zodiac, constellation, not just planets, but they put into words these zodiacs, fictions and dictions.
And diction.
They go, this is it.
Yeah.
So it's all intertwined to control. We've cracked it, and I know that we're right. So the date of birth, fictions is your dictions, and this is where the instrument and conveyance comes into play now. The instrument and conveyance, I said the signing is your equitable asset. That's right, you've got an equitable instrument, which is what John Harris allegedly said you don't need. Don't be a fool. We are legal idiots, not fools. Mr. T, B.A. Baracus, it's just that kind of message. Now, as I say, equitable assets at the signature, the instruments could look at anything like this. It's not just any one. It depends what you have to hand at the time, where you are, your capacity, birth certificate, driving licence and passport are the three things that Brother McRae said. Go to fidelity.com, put those numbers in. I haven't got my wallet at home for the court. They're in the car. I'm going to say I'll get them out and show you. He said to put in on the driving licence and passport and certificates, fidelity.com, the bond numbers. And he said on the bottom right of you, you can pass that around, the bottom right number there on that one is your bond number. The top right number on the birth certificate, which I've got in the car, is your bond number for the stock market, and the passport identification number is the bond number for the passport. Went to fidelity.com. I've seen that as I'm 41 now, it was 37, I think, when Steve said that a good 4 to 5 years ago. I looked at it, 30 years maturity, that's what a general bond with these takes, 30 years type of bond it is, for full maturity. And I'm like, okay then, so there's millions kicking around here in these three bonded certificates. Anything you sign can be considered a bond. Job application forms, bizarrely, letters, notices. When you put special delivery on an envelope and you sign autograph, you've created a bonded international military document when you're dealing with courts and commerce, and you're putting on stamps on the document itself, but then when you reference the recorded signing special on the envelope to the document itself, put it in and seal it all, you've created a bonded international high value document now as well. You're using universal postal union and law, and you don't realise how powerful these things are what you do. They just don't recognise it, but that's when they made Americas, they made the train station and the post office, so they've got the transport and they've got the courts there. It's very, very powerful. So these documents are your instruments then, and all your identities for your person. They are still not us. When we go to the private, I'm expecting a black one of those, like what the mini-stars and Desmond Tutus and so forth. When I don't know where I've seen them, but I know I've seen black ones with the cloth clergy, and I'd expect that kind of same.
Mine used to be black.
Yeah, military. Yeah, green, blue, black and purple there is.
Well, you take completely different with a black passport.
Yeah. I know. It should be, yeah. I know. I'm not so happy about the colour, but what it does is fair enough, yeah.
Well, that's why it's that colour, isn't
I'd
it?
like it maybe yellow, golden or something.
Yeah,
Sovereign passport.
Luminous.
Yeah. Tripping 3D colours, singing and dancing, all that. So information, we would never submit that. We file in courts and things and so forth. So you got that on there, yeah. Sorry about the bookshot and a lot of information.
That's all, we took all the details.
The information submitted is presented, it's not submitted, we present it, and upon request, like in the stop and search, you can present your person in accordance with the law and conforming to the original request without any accepting public liability. So where we got them out, who are you? And I need identification, and you get that out and you'd say that was you. We now say that is the person, that's where the date of birth is, that is the driver, that can be the person in the court as a beneficiary, that can be presented to an officer as the driver. I'm the man, David, I have a driver, a V5 person, I own the V5 driver, and that is how you travel, and it's got your person on, so the main three, port pass, and port pass and transport, port pass and transport. In between the ports you need to transport. It's just madness. They are hidden. The language is very clear. Joinder to the person is what we've heard of before, and that now is subjugate into subrogation. So if you look at that, and we had three men, and I owed it Dave, and Dave owed it Kev, and Kev come to me and subrogated me and went through instead of going to, when you're doing it, that's all that means, when there's a debt to be paid, and who should be paying the debt, but you go to somebody else and ask them for it, and if they're dumb enough to pay, they will. And that's the basic premise in the triangle type, relationship of subjugate and subrogate. You are not the person you think you are, well, you can pay for it then. And that's it, it's as simple as it is. It sounds technical, and they are lawful, legal you know, weird situations, but you know, we'll simplify it for you. And we don't carry identification for the private man because it's your thumb. You have a mark. As I say, that's a thumbprint of things that are printed on 2D paper format. Technically, if you want to get down to it, so you'd ink it and mark the mark of the beast. Now I know there's 666 in the atom, but it's the mark of man. And that's how your identity. There's only one of them. I know they take the soles and the feet, the blood type, and you birthed and born, and the Vatican holds that. So the identification for the private man, my word is my bond, and I get witnesses to reference who I am, commonly known as David, YouTube witnesses, anything like that to prove who I am, written down, bit of paper with some Asda value, Tesco value, get a photo, stick it somewhere, and then you can write your own document and get some witnesses at the bottom, 3 of them, thumbprints, signed, and that could be an attestation as to who you are. You know, you don't need their stuff, and we can make our own, and you know, have identity for the man, give the name, set it all out. We have seen documents like a claim of right, notice of allodial title claim, notice of intent, understanding, and claim of right, and all these things are quite good to do, but we need to simplify it. I think we're working out that we have overcomplicated it. This is keeping it simple here for you. And we need to go private with the officer and see how we would then present. What's it saying here? At this point, we have to explain to the officer we do not accept the full public liabilities, and we abide by the equitable means. That's coming back. And our status is private. Yeah, you get that so far? You with me? Equitable means. You don't have to say that. You can just say, I'll draw this for you as well. Next one. I'll read it out and then I'll pass it around. Notice, rights and freedoms. I do not consent to any acts or statutes made by Parliament. I do not have to prove lack of guilt or condition of my freedom. Can you show proof of claim and proof of authority over me? If you can, then you will be asked for it in the court. I have a common law. This now needs to go to equitable right, not common law. This is an old thing that we did. I have an equitable right to the presumption of innocence. I have the right to silence and will not answer any questions. Please turn over. I advise you not to use my right to silence as grounds for suspicion. Am I free to leave? Any attempt made by you to prevent me from doing so will be assault and false imprisonment. You are liable for your own actions, not your employer. You know, you, the man, the officer, John Smith. And you will be charged by way of private prosecution. Every minute you hold me, you will be charged £60, not your employer. By the holding of me, you have consented to this contract. Your employer is not here, you are. I am an advocate for anti-slavery, fundamental freedoms and human rights. Are you? And that was done about 3 years ago by a brother in the Facebook Trust who sent me that, and I printed it up. So
when would you,
you can have one of them. I'll get them onto the .com. I'm just going to update it. But you can present that to an officer.
Alright, so it's give you details.
It tells them everything, so you don't need to do more. You just print it on there, your wallet.
When you're running your person,
There's my driver.
do that with it.
While you're running the driver, take that with you. I'm keep them together. It's a contract.
Free name. Yeah? You don't have a name, you have a call.
Yeah.
The name is in your pocket.
It's not identification of you, it's
So you can give them that identification saying that this is not me, this is my person.
exactly, that's perfect.
Yeah.
They're not claiming that, right?
Yeah, you can tell him who you are. You can give him that's your driver. You can give him
Explain who you are and
All the ring on with his ring and all that, yeah.
well, the best way to do it is to think by the way. We're good people, we're good hearts. We haven't been in that trouble anyway. You know, but
I'll finish this text here. It says, we do not accept the full public liabilities. We abide by, if you like, equitable means, and our status is private. We are known as indigenous, self-governing. We are governed, but we're just self-governed officers, so, you know, that's what we're looking at there. England and Wales, we do not reside in the United Kingdom. Our persons do, as do the police, government and citizens. They're all over that side in the United Kingdom. So It says, we would then ask if we are being detained, like it says on the card, or arrested, and for what reason. We're happily to lawfully comply with the request to help with the inquiry. We do not accept public liabilities. Remember, we're only being questioned, that's all we're doing, and stop. So we're just saying who we are, and this is the first difficulty. It's very, very simple. This man who's wearing the black uniform purporting law, he doesn't know what a person is and a man. But that's the first message I need to convey. And you are seeing. We do not choose to put on, in legal terms, the persona, to put on the mask. That's the Majora's mask, the personas, and we have an M on the end, equity acts in personam, with an M, persona, Latin, mask, and so that's the mask you're putting on. Your person is a mask. So if you want hospital treatment, I might want to be Mr. David and go and get my NHS number and get my treatment. If I've just done a road traffic accident, even here, God forbid, and I end up needing treatment, I'll gladly consent to being the person for that. I don't know if they'll fix me right, but they'll get something.
You're a beneficiary of the hospital trust then, aren't you?
Instead of being left on the road. So we're kind of lucky in that respect, because in other countries, you get left on the road. You know, and we think, well, how done by that's an example of what we're saying out there. It is crap and shitty here, but it's nowhere near as bad as some of the places.
No.
But that's coming here soon.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah. It's in the post.
China, America, China, America, France are the testing grounds, it seems. Hungary, Romania, it's swooning through. So the persona mask, you get that. You don't get asked about it. You are considered under default, assumption and presumption from Westminster that these statutory codes are mandated upon thy person. That's it. That's how it runs, full stop, till you get to the judge. And then you have to make him, you know. Some offices do recognise, but not a lot will understand. Even ministerial offices, Esther McVeigh, Steve Barclay, I've been in touch with loads, correcting, mentioning beneficiaries, damage, common law, private, liens, etc., breaches of trust, NHS, and they haven't got a Scooby. They just run away and change and hide and don't answer and force you to say letter before claim. No answer from that. Default position. We've already won. You've got to settle out of court. No problem. Ladder, come on, we're going to court. It's just following that up. You have to become the litigant in person now. Litigation. The mitigation is, I was sick in hospital away, seeing my mum. I didn't know all that had come through. I'm not a criminal. We've decided that in my absence. I have the right to face my accuser and to audience. So you can stop things and that. They say you can't. Like you said about statutory limitations on the claims for fraud on the bank loans, and they're saying on Facebook 6 years and then you're done, 7 years, 6.
There's one clause in those laws.
Yeah, and that's there is with this, with everything. It's and they know that, so the officer should understand you stand in the private and at law. If he doesn't, we have a problem. There's nothing I can do. There's no magic fix. That's for the desk sergeant to understand now, because you're on the street. He's found a substance. He's reading you the rights. Yeah, you've got. You're not going to be public. And you are the person. You have the person. You are not the person. You are the master of it. And he's going to run his checks, inquiries. You know, if he's just stopping searching you, you don't necessarily have to be found without. You can still present as private. If you've had an accident, you've hit somebody, another car, horsey, vehicle, property, you can still be a private person and manage all of this like this. You don't have to suddenly go, oh, I'm the date of birth, surname or whatever. You always are private. It's your choice to be public or private. The private is non-combatant and the public is combatant. So the officer will check the checks on your person. He will never identify the man because we don't exist in files and they will never find us. You know, we can let them know if we are going to be detained or arrested. Don't say kidnapped, child, abducted, detained. There's lots of different words you can use there for being taken against your consent, incarceration, etc. You can let them know there's a unilateral agreement for coming out of the private and going into the public for no consent and a civil crappy thing that really could just let you off with his discretion. You know, so we have that to put on the .com with the unilateral agreement as well as that little bit of card there. And the officers in the UK, they seem to not know the difference between a man and a person. As daft as it sounds, government Theresa May, I'll go and tell them that all day long. They don't. Basic how we need to break this down even further because it's not hitting home is, they don't know the difference between that. And the people that read the Bible do. The people that read the Bible don't make laws. Unfortunately, the lawmakers aren't religious. there seemed to be something of which I can't say. It might begin with an N and end in an I. It come from Germany, you know, in the Second World War. Apparently we won it, but I don't think we did. It's still running silently. There was a secret directorate running, if you get me, yeah? They know it is, so that's left. The person man,
It means against government.
and the man is in the private, and the person is in the public, and it's left to you, the suspect, the victim. We are the victim of these crimes, and that's how the true fact is. If you can't clarify the status, standing, indeed capacity of their assumptions and presumptions, your character, then you will, you know, you'll be in trouble, and you will comply with all legal, you know, you're going to comply with all legal requests lawfully. We're not legally going to legally reply legally. We'll lawfully reply because, you know, they say they're purporting law, but they're not. They're public codes in the public. Law is for man and the soul. We've been told that law, Rumpole of the Bailey, Cavan QC, all of these murder she wrote and all of that, that is law to some extent because it's murder. And we've seen that on TV, LA Law, all the things my mum used to watch, and it was like real hard-hitting law, crime, streets, robbery, and they showed you law. But what we're getting done for is paper administration, estate, account issues, and that's not where we're at. That's not their job. That's us. We can administer and control. If you're running your own business, then you may as well just stop running your own business and run your own estate with all of this and not working. You're doing all your tax returns anyway, so let's just transfer via discharge. Consider that your business. You don't have to get up and go out to work anymore. You do it from the office, which is your home, which is considered an office, but they haven't told you you're in an office. You see? So you stepped out of office now, but you've left your man in there. Anybody comes wanting in the office, so that's your public and your private, and you know, if you are the suspect and you are innocent and they don't find anything on you, you will now ask if you're free to go, as it says on the card. It's your wish and requirement to be on your way about your business without hindrance. If the officer should either acquiesce, you know, agree and let you go, or arrest you and detain you because he then finds a controlled substance like some weed in your car, something that you shouldn't have. And then you would be then taken to the station, and then you would just say at the station, have you got any ID on you, because that's what they're going to ask you. But then, hear me out, they take you to the station, they want to book you in, and they're going to take what? They're going to take these, the Dannies, caught red-handed. It's normally the red ink that they put these in. It's now a scanner, I hear, and they don't use the ink, the black ink, red ink, for when we transfer discharge, black ink, you know, when... caught red-handed, when you do red and blood and stuff and caught red-handed, does that mean that you not so much murder, but what you've been in transferring? Where's my money gone? I took my money.
You've still got the blood in your hands.
I went to
You got red-handed.
yeah, you've been in that though as well, you know, thumbprints. So then you get booked in, they don't ask for that, this becomes inconsequential, they take the prints, the dies. So why are they taking the fingerprints? Because they've got the man there. But how do they get paid? With the legals. So it's madness, you see, they're in both worlds. Fiction is meeting reality in this realm. You are fictionally being booked in with your appropriates there, and that's how they get paid. But then when they are taking you and photoing you, that's not an identity, that's just a photo stuck on a card that they say is a driving licence, but that's a photo identity card. Actually, my driving licence is a paper format, which is totally different to that. You know, so when they book you in and they're taking a photo, they're joining now David and his data self. Thank you, Experian, for that advert. I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe my look. I'm like, yes! Come on, now, that's going to make it easier. That's like me doing an advert. I made one of them.
What is it?
Dan and his data self, by the credits, Experian company, data credit checks. There's two men in a tent and in a field, and they're having meals and stuff, and there's a clothes. It's like a man and his clothing. Is this a secret? Yeah. Or is it Experian?
Yeah, that's right.
And they'll tell you like there's a data self. Because you're in the real world, and then you want to do stuff, and then you want a house and a mortgage. Well, you can't get that. Your data self can, and he belongs in the computer. He's 2D. He doesn't exist in real life. And there's an advert telling you this.
Right, this is actually recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, just say to Graham, you know, when you get your driver license, you send your photo or whatever to them, that photo is
They have to tell
authenticated.
you what it is.
So who's authenticating the photo they take at the police station?
They need that for the bank to work in for
Your signature.
Unless they've got
Offset the
thumbprint,
camera.
the photo to go with the thumbprint.
Yeah, that's what
That's
they're
generally
doing.
the whole
Yeah,
process.
this is magic being in
Put it on
reality.
the camera.
Wait, this is spell casting.
They hide it in plain sight, don't they?
Yeah, but you don't see it until you see it. It's incredible, it really
Once you
is.
start seeing it, you can't stop.
Oh, it's too much, once you're in, you're done,
You don't know what you
yeah.
don't
It's
know.
over.
But then when you know.
Yeah.
The ways that the tank
When we go back to 10 years, forget about it all. No,
Somebody laid a claim on you, what would you do to it? How would you deal with that? Whatever it was, a debt, a charge, they're always charged, how would you deal with it?
Somebody claim they've got an amount of money against you, whatever it might be.
That's something to ask you, it's quite important.
Yeah, this is good, yeah.
Please.
Well, first of all, yeah, what passing tax ground? This is nonsense. And that's one way you can go
have
about it.
a quick wee break?
You can, yeah, I'm just going to show this quick this scenario.
Thank God.
I'll give you an idea of what this quiz is like as well. But yeah, if you get a claim made upon you, which you will do every other day, in the form of notices through your letterbox, telephone calls, people chasing accounts and trying to link you, just conditionally accept them and consider to conditionally accept them, because that, if I'll ask you what does Kevin probably knows, but what does conditional acceptance do?
It goes into the quadrant now.
It's not a test, but it is kind of a test. It puts the liability on the claim. It's my claim that you owe us
Keeps you
some
in
money.
clean hands, keeps you hands clean, yeah, because you're saying, okay,
Perfect
I
time
accept
for
this,
friends.
just show me X, Y, Z. So you're not going, okay with that, then you're able to see, then you're in the by condition accept, the conditions are,
It's a
you
one
supply
fix
X,
for
Y,
all.
Z.
But this fixes everything legally. It fixes every legal situation 100%. So when somebody lays a claim like you all owe me individually £100 for appearing today, you didn't read the small print, blah blah blah. What? You know, now I want to see the small print, Dave, you know, and I'm like, no, it's there, I assure you. So I'm not paying you the £100 till you show me, and I then show you where it is. Then I prove my claim. If I can't show you where that is, or you know, or prove my claim, there is no claim. So rather than argue with me or punish me for being a cheeky little mother or whatever is causing damages and getting vexated, which is what the system does generally, or makes us panic and fear the inevitable, you just conditionally accept, and then you say, where's the proof? The conditional acceptance puts the liability on the claimant, that would be me, saying you all owe money. If you argue it, you've done wrong. If you paid it, maybe you didn't need to because we're all bankrupt. There is no debt, we're insolvent.
If I was to write you a letter to say, yes, I accept.
Conditionally
Accept that I owe you £100.
I can do, yeah.
And then you say, can
You
you
will show you the evidence, that's it.
Yes.
That's why it's a conditional acceptance. It works for everything legal. Even law. Someone says you've robbed them.
They'll still,
Just say I've signed something and they sent me a photo, you sent me a photo.
No, I need the original, you need the original signature, that can be forged, photocopies can be forged, yeah. So a key part of today I'd like you to walk away with is to know that if anybody attacks you with a claim, legally and lawfully, like even theft is law, not just made up public stuff. You suffer, someone's robbed a shed and you think you know where it is, go and give him a knock, sort it out, don't you? Take your brother with you, have a chat. Now then, pal, I've got a camera on my house, it looks like you and your brother last night in our garden, is that true? You know, oh, I don't think I was, no, we're drunk and whatever. Okay, come on, come out to the house, have a look, there's a video, is that not you? Ah, shit, yes it is. I'm drunk, sorry, I didn't even remember doing it. Let's go to the shed. No, it's in the shed, fucking metal, stuff's all in there. Oh, take it, sorry, I didn't mean to do it. I'll give it you back, it's a fair court, you've got the claim, I didn't even know I robbed you. It happens, you know, done with, no police, no charges, scutched around the head, maybe I buy him some drinks, happy days, you know. But if I haven't got video footage, and I say he's robbed me, and only our kid or someone's seen him, and I've got no photo or video, and he says no, I can't enforce that claim. You know, so then how am I going to prove that? So he would say, give me your evidence. And if he's a clever lad, and he remembers Robert Gate, but he's just saying he was drunk to get out of it, you know, like we do on the spot thing sometimes. Say, oh, sorry, I didn't realise that. No, yes, I'm seeing some sharp points. So you know what I mean? And you do that. It's amazing the brain how much time you can get when you need something. You go, and it comes out, and you're like, I didn't know how wow, master how proud of that. So yeah, and you can get away with it. So I just thought you can't prove anything. You shouldn't make the claim, and vice versa today.
They were still ignore it, wasn't it? As long as you've got that, claim in,
Acceptance. And ask for the proof.
Yeah, but they will talk to you and deal with you, but they never received it.
Oh yeah.
All the time.
Like you're the Mr. on a debtor.
So no matter what you write, what you say,
You get big marriers come in. Plausible deniability, we call that. Yeah. Plausible deniability.
Send it back. Refer to the letter I sent you. Send it straight back. Yeah, well, they're not trained, so they just.
Oh, your phone rings, you're alone then, in defence, the phone rings and you go, hello, and they go, hello, is that David? And I'll say, yes, it's David, and they might say something like, hello, equitable, I have an equitable right, yeah, a universal, equitable, something natural and private, not common law, that's public, so.
You're going to do another version of that, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll put it onto the .com, yeah. I'll get it updated, that's, it's not far away though, you can check that and photos of it or whatever. What to say it? Phone rings after the name, and you say hello, hello. I say caller, can you identify yourself? If it doesn't say the name and it's a random number, hello caller, identify yourself. Hello, is that David? Who's speaking, please? Before anything, you know, they're leading questions. Are you the driver? Is this your vehicle? Is that David? Yes, David speaking. Hello there. Oh, is that Mr. Jeremita? Is Mr. Smith? Mr. whatever? Mrs. And yes, it is. Well, you just said you Mrs. That's the title. You might not have said the full. Mr. Jeremita is enough because Mr's the public part. Jeremita all caps. So Mr. and that'll do. You've just said that number is Mr. Jeremita's number. It isn't. That's David's private line. Line, shipping lane, lanes, lines. It's all madness. The roads, the boats and phones. It's so yeah. My shipping line, my private line, and telephone line, digits, number. Think about it now, what you address these things as is not Mr. Jeremita's, it's mine. I previously had it as Mr. Jeremita's for loads of things. And that's not how you contact him. You contact him through the office. You're speaking to David. Mr. Jeremita's here. Can I speak to him? That's the waterman was found out on one of my videos. No, because it's 2D and I'm the one that speaks for him. New information's come to hand. Mr. Jeremita's no longer available to speak. I am David and I speak for him. And they don't, that's it. They don't have any clue, no training. Where's Mr. Jeremita? It could be a dead, it could be anything. He's not here. I can take a message and pass it on. When can I speak to him? You can't. It's only an instrument. You legally trained. Just to stop all of this, right? I've done it too many times. Right, bro, are you legally trained? No. Can I speak to somebody that is? Yes, get there and speak to them. Get their email, because the legally trained people, believe it or not, like the police, they don't know this. As Steve McRae found out, doing the telephone people, and Dirk JD, and Chrissy Morris, loads and hundreds of videos they don't know. So let's cut to the chase. What do they know? They know that emails are recorded. They know about liability. They know about court. So we just go to where we are recording, communicating to them with the legal department. Don't get angry with the ones that don't know, and you go through that way with them. And they're served, the emails are recorded, they've got the obligation and duties, you've corrected the trust. Once the trust has been expressed, it goes into the correct position, so you're laughing. It's just simple going back now and redoing what we've done, but without Magna Carta and so much noise about the Constitution, because they're public. The Constitution and Magna Carta was a trust between the monarchy, the barons and the people, and if a trust falls down, then you can't use it, which is why Magna Carta isn't used anymore. No one's going to come out and tell you that, because it's such a great thing in history, we cannot forget it. No, we can't.
What about those guys that are banging on about Magna Carta?
I'd like to speak to them and see how they've used it then, because it's been repealed, repelled, superseded. We've got a coin with Magna Carta, we've got it in the Royal Court of Justice, but that's not the strongest thing. All right, if it gets rebut it in some way in a lawful judicial realm, the Magna Carta, what else do you fall back on? That's all I'm saying. I'll go in and use it first thing every day. When it gets rebutted, what else do you have, please? I'll give you go to a court scenario, we'll give you steps where you can do things and you can go in through a process and you know, he doesn't, they don't, but you know you've got maybe 20 to keep going back on, to keep rebutting and going and going and going, and then the last bit would be, I resign from office. Fair enough, I do what the manager of the council for Grenfell did when he burnt them poor fuckers alive through his horrid negligence, as I see it. What did he do? When they only claims to him, thank you very much. And he's out, he's gone. Tony Blair, war crime. You're not going to go into it. Get out of the office. Remember we had Diana come out and say, hello, I think I'm going to be killed. And she died, and the police didn't investigate anybody in the royal family. That's what we're dealing with. No honour, it's quite crazy in some respects. I'm not trying to scare you, but when you're battling, you've got to be, locking it down. So, claims of liability, conditional acceptances, telephone calls, last will and testament, assets, property, getting that ring fenced. So, if you want an asset that protects property, there are some rules. Who can asset protect property into a trust? Who is it that has that capability? Not everybody can put something into a trust. Only a certain type of a person with a certain title can put it into a trust. That would be the owner. And only the owner has a title.
Is a man anything to do with this person and that then, or is that? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Persons are persons of men.
Say like natural man. Is that anything to do with that person?
Well, a man is a man, yeah, that's all right, man, natural man, because you have an alien in America, their language is illegal alien. If you're a Mexican across the border with no ID, hey man, I got an illegal alien. They're not fucking aliens, they're not illegal, it's their language, but of course legally, no ID. Dark skin in America, well, you're obviously an illegal alien, so yeah, man, person. And then when you are in America, and that illegal alien is then taken to the District of Columbia, or they're not taken, but they are when they take the oath, the flag. Why would you take allegiance to a flag in a country? I take allegiance to, I think it's Jack Fresco that says this, the human race and the animals and the plant kingdom. I pledge allegiance to the world, plants and whatnot, not to be naturalised as a naturalised person. So God is not a respecter of persons. Now it gets technical because God is not a respecter of persons. You have an all caps person. He's definitely not a respecter of that. We know that. When you go and you proceed with your paperwork, you present an officer to the court and you do a notice and you put the all caps in and you autograph it with a thumbprint and you lowercase and reserve and set out status in correct trust. What have you done? You've given the reader two identities, an all caps position, public person, and a private person, because in law, as far as I see it, even in equity, where it acts in persona as the man, not as a fiction, companies can't use equity remedies, only a man can. So if you're up against a corpse, only one of you can obviously use an equitable remedy, the blood. So to say in law, I'm the blood and flesh, what we didn't get told is that equity does that, because it only acts from persona, and you are then the man. But you're not saying I'm the man's body, flesh and blood, beneficiary of the land, and vexating the man. You're going in with the tools, with the language, with the stealthiness. So like I said earlier, with the stepping to the dog, I wrote in the beginning, introductions and parties meeting, minds, I'm not stepping into the dog because I get seasick. We, the party, non-vexatious, nothing about his oath, nothing about I demand. We don't care about that. We know who we are, and I know how to keep you at bay. If worse comes to worse, make him trustee. That's his position in a fiduciary capacity. That's the last bit before stepping out of office and making trustee. We've got all these positions now to go down. Not just, I call Magna Carta, and that's it. Because then he's going to, what are you going to do now? Where's your shield? Where's your next? So that's where you need to really think about that beforehand. It's quite, a privilege and honour for me to give you all of this, because it hasn't been easy. And a lot of them have got taken down doing it.
They've got this system, haven't they? They've got this system.
Yeah. Yes, it does, they run off, Andy Sovereign Smith's made them run off, I'm at Oxford, judges stay in discharge, so yeah, yeah, run off, discharge. There is, we've got the pathway, the key, tools, the instrument, language, the videos, the phone calls, the audio, now we're doing seminars, and we'll speak to the police, test them, and I bet they fail. But they don't know shit, and I've never been to uni, so we need to meet in the middle. They're going to call, they're going to shit on with money, economics, trade, and I need to try and save his family. We need to save our family without riot, murder, and big gangs who are bigger than others, stood there taking over the streets because the metropolitan striking us, so if they strike and get pissed off, we are in the street. We can't trust the streets to look after themselves. And whoever's biggest will follow these government leaders and EU and UN in the way because we'll follow and they'll win, you know. We'll eat each other up, we shouldn't. And it'll be start with the coalition, the whites and the blacks and the Iranians and the Turkish, and eventually when we got rid of all them, it'll just be the whites left and then they'll get rid of all of us. And we'll wish that we haven't got rid of them because, you know, now we're being picked on by our own, which is like the government kind of doing now.
But this way, send us all in the chaos.
No, we're destined for that anyway. It tells you in the Bible, it tells you in a lot of places, a lot of the continents' religions say, if you don't love each other and be good, you're destined for shit. If you tell someone done
compassion, consideration, understanding,
The drinking
help each other, then there wouldn't be any chaos, would there? We'd all be helping each other.
Up to a perfect society around 25-ish.
That's good.
And then it'll all start.
Everyone's got a break, do you want to have a break? Have you got any questions, anything on it? So asset protection.
Yeah, 3 days walk away from
I don't know. Yeah, there's one in Elizabeth, there's one in London. So London town, in 1666, and London city invaded, and secretly played Fire of London and the CQB. We didn't speak Latin, and the plague and Fire of London was enough, so we did that. The city of London was sorted out, made, created, and then you've got the crown on Elizabeth's head that she rents off the Vatican.
So I mean, literally,
The crown of London, the crown of Italy. You know, when it's just like Washington, London, Vatican,
yeah.
war,
I get it.
American war, London money, and Italy souls.
Yeah.
And they're the crowns, but he owns them all. Franciscan friars, Jesuits, there's loads of names in that publication that starts off with.
Is there only one crown running, as it were, at the minute, or do all these 3 crowns run unaffected?
Yeah, they all run. There's in the publication that was done, number 2, I think it is. It's got I think it's the Franciscan friars motif, the Medicis, the Medicis, and all these Italians. I can't recall them all, but they were there with the pontiff, and it's a trust. So when you are the owner of something, you can put that into a trust. You've got the title deed, you put that into the trust as the asset, as the res. So what happened, as far as I understand, after 1302 and the pontification of the Unum Sanctum was, they said, we will, God has said to the Catholic Church, Unum Sanctum, Boniface, innocent, I should know this, and they said, we're going to do this and look after the Vicar of Christ has come, and as the Vicar of Christ, they put the world into a trust for the Christians as the res, and then they made a trust up where the Christians are the beneficiaries, and God at the top is the settlor, he's the creator of the Christian realm, he's created it, and then you've got the pontiff as a trustee, Christians as beneficiary, God as settlor. So it's a basic premise of the first master testamentary trust that was made that encapsulated this weird system. So that's they said that, not anybody divine, not like Joan of Arc that went to the French king and says, I've just been visited by 3 angels and I've come to tell you that I've got to go to battle as a 17-year-old French girl, not knowing shit, but you know, I've come to tell you. And you look at that story, and she went into battle with all the knights and kicked ass and ended up winning it. She, was a 17-year-old girl, approached the full military council knowing shit, and that story is as true as it comes, you know, it's we're calling in the thing to do it. It's relevant as, you know, as you see it. And
and that's another thing, like, all these stories you hear, are they actually physical or are they true?
No, it's in history, yeah, but you don't know how accurate and true, like it's writing of the Bible 100 years to 900, but he died at 0, so how can we have an accurate description of anything, let alone finding, where say about the crowns, Romans and that man, because it's quite a long history, Constantine, 325, doing Bible writings and studies and works with the Romans. It was Santos, I don't mind saying that, said about Josephus, and then we go, Jesus, Josephus, and I know Jesus is, and Jesus and Zeus, but Josephus, he's not in the Bible. He's like, no, he did some writings with Titus, and all of these, what I got into with the study, and I was like, that's too much, Santos, and my head hurts. You see, the continuum of lineage there is control. It's a big old story, to be fair. It's taken us a long time. Don't feel thick, don't feel slow, don't feel, I feel that, how we are. The times, 1302, and what they've done and said, and you can undo that in a blink of an eye, but not now, because of the supposition of the might and the force and the rule. It'll take a few of us to make a stand, but individually in the court, still there is just...
Yeah, I've got to use
We're behind, but we're catching up, aren't we all?
Titles, yes, the titles what you claim and that, the private, it's amazing how you can just change stuff. Debts and legal stuff. If you just remember, there is no money, and we're all in debt. So anybody wanting all these suicides for debts, and we're killing me because the people that are dying don't need to die. People are getting threatened, kids out the homes, and the people that are going at street lights and whatnot. They don't need to be there. They've got unlimited funds. All that money, austerity, health. So I'm just going to push it to be arrested now, and I'm not being arrested. I want to be. It's amazing. It sounds weird, but I really would like to be arrested now. To get into it without making
because it does practical, it does help you a lot more, doesn't it?
No, it's not that. Just to get my teeth into it and get it all ball rolling. It's not nice having things that aren't closed, just PCMs and fines, unpaid claims on the person. Controversy, it's called a controversy in law. When a controversy is raised, it must be dealt with, it will not go away. And it will be dealt with on a pre-action protocol as well, which is weird, and it will show you guilty.
What do you mean then, you want to be arrested? In a way like, so you can understand it a lot more?
Just so I can get into the system and say, right, what we're doing, what's your claim, let's crack on.
So you can bring it to, what you can put it into practice, you mean?
Yeah, just get on with it now, because I've said I was going to go to London, pay 528 quid and put a probate claim in for an estate because of what I worked out when you go to a court, if you haven't got a last will and testament, you're in what's called probate, and probate is something to do with madness, bait, fishing line, bait, and then you got and then the probate in itself with intestate, weird crap that isn't my language that I can just remember, and it's like, okay then, so prosecution, in Surrey juris, pro pria, persona, I said persona is the mass, persona is equity, the man, in Surrey juris, pro pria, P-R-I-A, persona, and that's in one's proper person. Now, we are not respecters of persons, but in law to be the man, you don't say I'm the free man, Magna Carta, you say in Surrey juris, pro pria, persona, so that will get you into the proper person. So, very, very integral. I'm sorry, it's like Peter Pan, but Peter I've done this on YouTube so many times, and I'm good with it now. I see it, wow. We're getting there, we are very strong in it, they recognise that and they will hear that and they stand up for it, It's just getting it all out and structuring it because
they can't believe the slaves are...
the
peasants are revolting.
It's just got to simplify it and we get some
When was the last one? I wonder.
So thank you. Well, think of some questions.
Yeah.
We'll have a break.
Yeah, we just had a couple of agents stop. They were asking to belong to. We all sat back, they didn't do it.
We have 45 minutes or something, 2:15, if you want to get these. Is anyone going for food? Yeah. Probably I'll give it 45 now. Down here into the left, there was a Sunday, there was a shop down here.
We used to have things everywhere. Chicken shops and
Dave Guy, are you, Rob?
Oh, yeah.
Joined as well.
It's a donation, buddy, yeah, and I want to make an account for the website, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about all the, how it is, and
No, it's
I
okay.
feel so awful when I'm making emails, I'm like, oh,
Yeah, no, I know. I understand you've got to be careful, but also,
it's not about, yeah.
I closed my paper because I've been closing accounts for this year. Yeah. You know, especially one that can just go straight to bank.
Yeah, well, then, let me just put some back in there, you do that.
Yeah.
Yes, much less used to it, it's a monetary system we live in. I'd like a benefactor to come along and say, here's 10 grand, get you sent off, have some time to go out in the community and, you know, we haven't got access to the Treasury Direct accounts, we haven't got any independence, we're the victim of claims and we haven't got any protection yet. I want to do everything for free and show love and we cannot. I'm prepared to go down and take the rap for crimes, you know, HMRC and non-registration, and let them do it, you know, I'd rather be dead than live.
Did you hear that other, you like wordplay as well? And you mentioned...
Get carried away with it,
yeah. Yeah, I do a bit as well. Did you hear, surname is also your surname?
Surname, yes.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a publication, I don't know much, I'm picking it up, it's so fast, we need to sit together, and I need help, I'm not going to say I'm an expert, you know, I know a bit, I know a lot.
That's how I've done it, chocolate works.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
I've done it, you ever see on YouTube?
Yeah.
There's a channel called, Tyrant.
I've got it, I've done it, downloaded it all, fantastic. Bless him, God bless that.
I'm looking for a lot of now, I watch that.
Things, tidings, I'm like, oh, skull cap. The order, orders, I'm like, skull cap. Oh, that's making sense. Bless you, no, I need to. Yeah, well. Good lad. Real good lad.
You are correct.
I'll have a cigarette, yeah, coffee and that. Chemicals first. Yeah, well then, what is it you want? An account, just leave them there.
Good one.
I like that one, spicy bean. You want me to get up to write it down, the username and stuff you want, an account for the .com. I want to make it, what is it happy for £12. Yeah, we'll do that. You know, if you write down, so you send me an email, we're in touch on email, just give me a donation later, and then
Well, if I give you the information now, then I'll just drop you
username and an email account to make the account, and then I'll send you your password and whatnot. Watch them all
I'll
over.
let me give you the document and then
Yeah, that's right. Anything else? You let us know the download section, let me know how you get on. Navigation, try to make it simple. Front page has got everything there.
I tried to, I didn't take it to do this for a year or so, and I just, hold on, and I just, you know what it is, there's so much info out there, you know, you sort of, sometimes
Raining.
yeah.
Hello, oh, yeah, little time. Thank you for that. Good blessings, thank you.
Yeah.
Energy to energy, that's energy, this is energy.
energy.
Bless you, thank you for the support following you. Coming out on a Sunday. Be shot. You will get me shot. You take what you want, guys. Your prices and donations are there. Have a deep through. I might be a little bit lacking that. So you need an Excel then?
Have a good dig, guys. Dig in.